Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game National Studios. Connor Newt is here today. Hello, Connor. How are you?
I'm well, Jared. How are you?
I am getting better.
That's good.
This has been quite the, what's the term they use when a guy's out for a game or something? Upper respiratory infection. This has been, I think it's COVID. I don't know. This has been quite the upper respiratory infection, but I think I'm starting to kind of get there home free. And I was doing Sirius XM with Caroline today, and Caroline has moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, and Caroline was over at our house on Monday, and she was dealing with a sinus infection. And on Tuesday, during the All-Star game last week, I was on my ass, like with the chills and everything else. And this has been like an over week-long thing. I'm not used to that kind of long of a thing. And so this morning when Caroline and I were doing Sirius, Caroline was like, yeah, it took me about 10 days before I got over being sick. And I was like, that's the culprit. At least maybe I think. I want to start with this, which is it was great to hear Willie Donic back on the midday show. And it was great to talk to Willie, in that transition segment that we did today, kind of going over, talking about Aaron and her passing and everything else. And I just want to commend Willie and, again, not hammer away at the fact that we're thinking about Willie. I think it's obvious how much we're thinking about Willie and how much we're thinking about his family. But just, I'm not one of these people that says things like, well, that's what Aaron would have wanted, because I don't know. But the fact that Willie's back at work, I hope that it brings some light to Willie. I will say this. You guys, the audience, we're all like one big happy family. The station, the crew, I think we've got great camaraderie across our daily lineup. We had, and I've talked about this before, but we had a meeting about 2 years ago. And at the meeting, we talked about how we get on each other. And about how, like, hey, we're going to criticize each other's sports takes, but it doesn't mean that we don't respect each other. It doesn't mean that we don't care about each other. And as soon as we had that talk in that meeting, everybody in the room started doing this whole, oh, my God, yeah, no, we love it. And since then, we've been busting each other on the head over with sports takes. But I think our bond as a group has really gotten stronger. And Adam had an immense amount of respect from everybody when he joined the group. So there was like no missing a beat there. So I just want to highlight that. And I want to commend Willie for coming back and being on the air today. And I know it couldn't have been easy. I want to start on this. I was not at practice because, again, I am dealing with an upper respiratory infection. And I want to highlight that I wasn't at practice today, because TD will be here at 4:00. He was at practice, and I don't want anyone to misconstrue anything, but I saw that Cam Ward was picked off today on his first throw by Cody Barton. And then Cam Ward was almost picked off again today by Cody Barton. Now, let me say this. Thank you. Connor, you were there. You saw it.
Yes, sir.
Kaharski tweeted out and said they weren't very good on offense today. Can you back that up?
1,000%.
Okay, so they weren't very good on offense. Now, let's not get carried away, because it is the second day of training camp. And after practice, I did see the cut. I think Jim Wyatt posted it, but Cody Barton said Cam Ward goes up to him after he picks him off and starts saying, hey, what did you see there? What do I need to do so that I don't make the same mistake twice? And I like that. That is how you get better. You make a mistake, and then you figure out how you made the mistake, and then you figure out how not to make the mistake again. So I'm not going to overreact to he threw a pick on the first play, or he almost threw another pick, or PK, Connor Newt says the offense wasn't very good. I'm not going to get overworked. I'm not going to go crazy or anything like that. But the one thing I want to highlight for everybody when it comes to this particular situation is, notice how I didn't say we, are you sure Cam Ward is ready to play right away? Because if that was his first game at Denver, first pass, interception over the middle. Second drive or third drive, almost an interception. How is that going to affect him? And how is that going to affect the fan base's opinion of him? And I really appreciate what Cam Ward said yesterday when he said, hey, practice is like a game. You run about 80 plays in practice, you run 80 plays in a game, and you got to do the best you can. Because when players mess up with practice, the fans' natural inclination, and trust me, I'm used to this, but over the years, the fans' natural inclination, when a player messes up in practice, if it's a player that they like or it's a player that is on their team, is, and maybe even the players sometimes do this, but they brush it off and they say, well, it's practice. Oh, Jared, who cares? It's practice. And while it's true that nobody will remember what happens in practice for the big picture, to act like practice doesn't matter or that it's not indicative of who's good, who's successful, who's ready for the NFL, and who's not, I think is a little foolish. I think that's a little, well, I want to believe that that interception was really good defense and not bad offense. So I'm going to believe that because it makes me feel better. And I can do that because there's no real scoreboard in practice. But you will not feel that way once we kick the ball off in September. Last year, and again, it's the second day of practice. It's not the third week of August. But last year, in the joint practices with the Seahawks, I sat out there and I watched that offense and I said, if you guys had been to practice or if this practice was a game, you guys would be sitting there saying, Will Levis sucks. This offense sucks. And I said that and I got hammered with it's practice, Jared, and you're just trying to be negative and and I'm like, no, I'm just telling you what I saw at practice. When Caleb Farley was getting burned at practice, I kept saying it. When Malik Willis was awful at practice, I kept bringing it up because it does matter. And so I go back to where Cam Ward is right now. While it is practice, there's only so many of these until it starts to count for real. And given how much you Titan fans sometimes love to joke about how bad Anthony Richardson is, need I remind you, he's only played 15 games in the NFL. He's a bust, and you might be right. Will Levis only played 21 games. His team has demoted him, and he has subsequently made a business decision and is out for the year. And that's why I think it is so vital that the Titans thoroughly evaluate Cam Ward and put him on the field when he's ready. Not because you feel obliged to have to play the guy that you took number 1 overall right away. Play him when he's ready. And I kept saying that right after he got drafted. And I said, if I was the coach or I was the general manager and I drafted Cam Ward number 1 overall, there is a chance that you would think after hearing me at the press conference that there's a legit shot that Brandon Allen would be starting quarterback of this football team this season. You might not like it, but you would think, hey, Coach Stillman might actually roll with Brandon Allen. What did the Titans do? They unretired Warren Moon's number. There wasn't any, hey, we're going to be patient here. It might be Brandon Allen out there at quarterback. It was, hey, Warren Moon's here, and we're unretiring this Pro Football Hall of Famer's number. Those little things matter. Because in the NFL, it's like life. You only get one crack at a first impression. And yes, a first impression is not everything. Just like my first impression with Aaron Donic, not everything. But it does mean a lot. Will Levis's first impression mattered. It got him the job. So, again, when it comes to where Cam Ward is, I'm not saying Cam Ward shouldn't start against the Broncos week 1 because we're not there. But I do think if we're being serious about this and not just fanboys and putting up the emoji of somebody covering their mouth, I think we need to say, hey, this team needs to do a thorough evaluation of where their quarterback is, where his faults are at this point in time, and forget about anything else. Forget about what anybody else would say. Forget about, the fans want to see him play. That week 2 against the Rams, they're buying tickets to see Cam play. They're not buying tickets to see Brady. Forget about that. What is in the best interest of Cam? And I'm fine with putting him with the ones and seeing where he's at and giving him a bunch of reps in the preseason. And I'm not going to put Cam Ward behind a second-string offensive line in the preseason. But at some point, they have to make a decision as to whether or not putting him out there could hinder his development. That's all I'm saying. I'm sure people are going to be upset about that. I didn't say don't play him. I said make sure he's ready when you do. Because the old Yogi Berra saying is, it gets late early. And in the NFL, ask Anthony Richardson, ask Will Levis, ask Zach Wilson. It gets late early. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number. 615-737-1025. If the season started tomorrow based off of what we know, what should the Titans do with Cam Ward? We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106 for the game. So when it comes to mistakes, let's say he throws some interceptions tomorrow, and then he comes back on Thursday and he throws the same interception again. Then do you have a problem with it? When do you start to worry if things don't go well?
Yeah, I have a problem with it only if those interceptions come when he does not throw on time. Because you get a guy like Alec Iwerman, the rookie draft choice receiver. And he made his bones in college. He's very fast. He's not a super burner, but he's very fast. But he's a tall guy with long arms who would go up when he's covered and snatch the ball away from defenders that are right there like it's a rebound in basketball. Well, that's mildly interesting in college. You got to see if he can do it in the NFL. And so they're going to throw the ball up to him. And if they do it several times and the ball gets batted away or picked off several times, as long as the ball comes out on time and it's relatively accurate, I'm not going to be upset at Cam Ward. The problem will be is if he drops back and is not on time and he throws the ball late and it gets picked off and then he does it again. And then he drops back and he's late with the ball because he's not quite sure where to throw it. And then he scrambles around and then he throws it and it's intercepted. I'm upset about that. But I'm not upset if it's drop, set, throw, accurate to where the receiver is, regardless of the defenders around, because they've got to see if those receivers can make those plays as well.
There you go. That was Trevor on the program on Tuesday. Connor Newt, you were at practice today. I was not. Was Cam Ward's interception, was that hey, he put the ball there, it was a 50-50 ball between him and a receiver, and the DB made the play, or was it Cam didn't see Cody Barton standing in the middle of the field and Cam threw it right to him?
It was Cam threw it directly in the middle right to Cody Barton.
Just didn't see him. Yeah, I think those are the kind of turnovers Trevor doesn't like that we were talking about. And again, give me a grade. They grade the throws. So give me a grade on Cam's performance today at practice, Connor.
I would give him a C+.
A C+. Are you a tough grader or are you a lenient grader?
I try to be fair. I don't want to be overly hard, but I don't want to be overly lenient, if that makes sense.
Okay. So a C+, but again, the interception he threw right at Cody Barton, that was not a good pick. And the one that Cody Barton dropped, was that the same or was that contested play with a receiver, etc.?
It was the same.
Okay. That's not a good sign. But it's okay. Again, it's the second day of practice. And I am aware that the season does not start tomorrow. If the season did start tomorrow, though, and I know people say, well, it doesn't start tomorrow. I agree. Which is why this needs to be a daily evaluation on where Cam Ward is and how ready he is to go out there and contribute in the NFL, but also not hurt himself, not just physically, but also right here. If the season did start tomorrow, and let me reiterate, I have not been to practice over the first 2 days, but if it did start tomorrow and I was calling the shots, Brandon Allen would be the starting quarterback. Connor, you've been at practice the first 2 days. Would it bother you if I started Brandon Allen at Denver tomorrow against the Broncos based off of what you've seen with Cam Ward?
I don't think it would, because I think Brandon Allen is less of a flight risk, but nothing Brandon Allen has done in training camp has just absolutely blown me out of the water.
And nothing Brandon Allen will do is going to blow you out of the water. And nothing Brandon Allen would do against the Broncos is going to blow you out of the water. But it's not about whether or not you're going to win the game with Brandon Allen. The cartel does not have my family and is not threatening that if the Titans lose, they're going to take them. This is about the next 10 years in developing a young quarterback. So I have said in the past, I would go with Brandon Allen versus Denver. I would go with Brandon Allen versus the Rams and then reassess before the Colts game in week 3 because the Colts don't have any impact rushers. The game is at home, and the Colts had the 29th ranked defense in the NFL a season ago. Also, the defensive coordinator of the Colts, Lou Anarumo, formerly defensive coordinator of the Bengals, I think Brian Callahan should have a pretty good feel as to how Lou Anarumo is going to call the game. But here's the point of emphasis that I feel like gets totally lost when it comes to sitting Cam Ward to begin the season, which is why until proven and there will be 3 joint practices. I think there's only 1 joint practice date with Tampa Bay, and I believe there are 2 joint practice dates with Atlanta, and 3 preseason games, and I fully expect Cam to play in all 3 preseason games. But until proven otherwise, my default position would be to sit Cam Ward. And here's why. What do you lose if you sit Cam Ward the first 2 games? What do you lose if you sit Cam Ward the first month of the season? It may not be fun to watch Brandon Allen play the Denver Broncos or the LA Rams, but big picture, it's really negligible. Yes, you lose the reps that he could have gotten, which in order to become a good NFL quarterback, eventually Cam Ward is going to need on-the-job training. But it's also not as if Cam Ward's going to be watching TV at home with a bag of Cheetos in his hand. He will be preparing. He will be on the sideline. He will be suiting up. He will be in the meetings all week. He will have an earpiece on or a helmet with a radio system inside of it where he will be listening to the play calls and the discussion between Brian Callahan and Brandon Allen. And then when Brandon Allen comes back over to the sideline and they've got the tablet and they're sitting down on the bench, he'll be a part of that. He will learn from that. If you wait and stick him out there at home versus Indianapolis, I think we can all agree that is a much more favorable environment than he would be looking at as far as the Denver game is concerned. Denver, week 1 on the road, new offensive line, silent count, top 10 defense, all-pro defensive lineman, reigning defensive player of the year at corner. Vance Joseph, very good defensive coordinator for the Broncos. That doesn't mean that over the next 6 weeks, Cam can't prove that he's ready. And if Cam proves he's ready, then I would absolutely put Cam out there. But the other thing that it allows you to do, if you were to sit Cam on the bench, is it allows you to gauge exactly when you truly believe that he's ready to go out there and not be ruined. I know this. You can ruin a quarterback in the NFL by playing that quarterback before he is ready. Ryan Leaf told me, he said, in hindsight, 8 teams in the NFL know how to develop quarterbacks. I wish I had gone to the Steelers, not the Chargers. I had no business playing right away. You can ruin a quarterback by playing him too soon. I don't think you can ruin a quarterback by letting somebody else play for a couple of weeks and then saying, okay, now he's ready, put him out there. And I'm not saying this would be the end all or be all or anything like that, I am firmly against Cam Ward playing right away. We still have 3 joint practices and 3 preseason games. I'd like to see how Cam Ward looks in those. I'd like to see if he's improving, if he's learning, which he might, and I hope he does. But I need to make sure. I need to be proven that Cam Ward is ready to play, that Cam Ward won't do irreparable damage to his psyche or his body before I stick him out there right away, especially with a potential Lions den on the road at Denver in week 1, and then Braden Fisk and Jared Verse in the Rams in week 2. Like, I'd be sitting there in the coaching meetings. Again, if I ran the operation, I'd be sitting there in the meetings and I'd be saying, all right, guys, as of right now, Brandon Allen's the starting quarterback against the Broncos, and Cam has got to prove to us that he's ready before we stick him out there against Denver. Brandon Allen starts against the Rams unless Cam proves to us that he's ready to start against Denver or start against the Rams, whatever. That's how we'd operate. Years ago, when TD was covering the Eagles in Philadelphia, I'll probably ask TD about this later. The Eagles drafted Carson Wentz number 2 overall, and their plan at the time was for Carson Wentz to not play that year. They had Sam Bradford as their starting quarterback. Chase Daniel was their backup quarterback. Carson Wentz was going to be the 3rd string hold a clipboard quarterback. But throughout the camp process, I guess, Again, TD would know more about this than I would. But throughout the camp process, Carson Wentz proved to them, no, he's ready to play. And they traded Sam Bradford. He proved to them he was ready. That's where I am with Cam. I want him to prove to me that he's ready before I stick him out there. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025, if you want to weigh in on the program. And the one thing, I will get to your phones, but the pushback on this, if there's one thing that you people say that I hear, I'm just going to dismiss it, and I'll tell you why before you even say it, because it's ridiculous. We'll get to that coming up next. Hey, Sounds Baseball. We were supposed to be at the Sounds today, but again, I don't want to get anybody sick as I'm getting over whatever it is that I have had, whatever. So we're back in the studio, and I appreciate that. But the Sounds are at First Horizon Park today as they take on Charlotte. So tune into 94.9 The Fan for that. Go get tickets. You won't get sick because I'm not there to get people sick. Pre-game begins at 6:20. First pitch is at 6:35. Coverage also available on the Game Nashville app and at thegamenashville.com. That's Sounds Baseball on ESPN 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks and by Family Leisure.
saw you guys grading throws in the quarterback room.
Yeah.
How far back does that go for you and the places you've been?
Yeah, always had some version of that. Bo and I have had some similar kind of mentors over our careers, and one of the things I think you have to ask him more specifically. I think he got it from David Cutcliffe when he was playing, but they would grade every ball and every part of practice, and that essentially just makes you aware of where you're placing the ball, and location is such a critical part of successful quarterback play. Making you aware of where your bad throws are, where your good throws are, and you get a chance to look at why. Why was that throw maybe off target? And again, there's the difference between a throw here and a throw here is a great difference. So we're really hard on those guys in terms of their location, but they have fun with it too. It's a fun. They grade each other's throws. They have to come to an agreement on if a throw is a C throw, if it's an A throw. But the intent is to make them aware of the location of the ball. And if there is a bad throw, why did it occur? And keep them accountable to their part in the accuracy. A throws are probably hard to come by, naturally so, and I think that's a good thing. I would say they probably most practices are going to be a pretty high level of B throws, and then you have your handful of A throws. And I think when you look at the course of a game, quarterbacks probably have to make anywhere between 8 to 10 probably A throws in a game for you to convert on a third down or throw a touchdown, and that's probably a reasonable expectation.
That was Brian Callahan on the A throws versus the B throws and the C throws. Connor, you were at practice. How many A throws, B throws, C throws do you think Cam had? Just off the top of your head, just guess.
I mean, it was a lot of short ground stuff today again, so I would say there was a good amount of A throws. What I thought the C throws were when he went mid-range to deep.
Yeah, they probably don't really grade the checkdowns, if I had to guess. They grade the check down and say, all right, A on the check down. You threw it to the running back 3 yards out of the backfield. Way to go. It's funny. I kind of chuckle because the only reason we know that exists is because the Titans put out that behind the scenes TV show for YouTube, the Titans of Tennessee, in which they took you inside the quarterback room and they had all the guys out there grading the throws. And that's the stuff that Floyd used to hate, which is like, why would you bring a camera in there to show people what's going on? Because now everybody's going to ask Brian Callahan, how many A throws did Cam have today? How many B throws did Cam have today? And I just kind of chuckle. One thing I'm going to say before we get to your phones, 615-737-1025. Before you tell me, Jared, they got to play Cam right away. Because in the NFL, you don't draft a quarterback number 1 overall to sit on the bench. Let me say this. I am well aware of the fact that often in the NFL, teams take quarterbacks and just stick them out there. But that doesn't necessarily make it right. Like, do you want to emulate what Kyler Murray's team has done for Kyler? Or do you want to emulate Patrick Mahomes and what Andy Reid and the Chiefs have done for him? Look, Jaden Daniels, Joe Burrow started right away, and things are great. But Josh Allen didn't. Lamar Jackson didn't. Justin Herbert didn't. Jalen Hurts didn't. So just because Indianapolis was stupid and thought they had to put Anthony Richardson out there way before he should have been out there, doesn't mean I'm going to force Cam Ward out there before I think Cam Ward is ready to play in the NFL. So don't give me in the NFL, you draft him number 1, he's got to play. Says who? Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com, 615-737-1025. Steven says, if you would not start Cam Ward until he's ready, you should define ready. So I have the two thoughts here. Number one, the first thing I would say is, can Cam Ward go out there and not get himself killed and not turn the ball over? Now, turnovers are going to happen. And turnovers are going to happen if Tom Brady's your quarterback and he's got 25 years of experience. But I'm talking about the turnovers that we saw today, as Connor referenced, where Cam just turned around, threw the ball in the middle of the field. Cody Barton was standing right there, and he picked it off. And he almost did it again, but he dropped it. If Cam's going to go out to Denver and throw the ball right in the middle of the field to the other team, the way Will Levis rolled the ball on the ground to the other team, he's not ready. If Cam cannot make adjustments at the line of scrimmage based off the protections that he's seeing, he's not ready because he's going to get killed. So to me, that's how I would define if he's ready, which is not turn the ball over and not get himself killed. And if they think he can go out there and not get himself killed and they think he can go out there and take care of the football, then put him out there. But again, I'd say it's not the end of the world if you just give it a little extra time. And again, when it comes to sitting guys, yeah, Mahomes sat the whole year and Steve McNair sat for 2 years, but Justin Herbert sat for 2 weeks. And then the doctor punctured Tyrod Taylor's lung. And so Herbert went out there, almost beat the Chiefs, and it was like, all right, he's ready. Josh Allen sat for 1 week. Lamar sat for half a season. That's what I'm talking about. One texter says, assuming that Ward is better than Levis, if the Titans had improved the offensive line and new quarterback last season, wouldn't it be fair to say that instead of winning 3 games, they could have won 6 or 7 games? It is not at least reason to hope that with a few more pieces that they could be decent. Well, I think about it like this. How many one-score games did the Titans lose last year? Because one-score games are primarily a 50-50 in the NFL. Now, if you've got a Brady, it's a little different, but a 50-50 proposition. Like Kirk Cousins a couple of years ago at Minnesota was something like 9-1 in one-score games. And it's like, that's not sustainable. Like, that's not what it is. So how many one-score games did they play last year? Chicago, the Jets, Indianapolis, and I'm just looking, through the list right now. Then it kind of turned into some butt kicking. Jacksonville twice was a one-score game. And technically, Indy the second time was a one-score game, but you lost all of those games. I mean, I guess you did win the New England game, which was a one-score game, and the Houston game, which was a one-score game. So what is that, off the top of my head, 7? So if you have 7 one-score games, and you should win half of those, that's 3 or 4. You see what I'm saying? So, no, I think you were really bad last year. And I think you were bad across the board. Bad players on special teams, bad players on defense, no pass rush. I mean, bad offensive line, no right tackle, bad at receiver. I mean, when NWI is your second best receiver, you're not very good. Bad at tight end, running back so-so. Hey, you had a bad team last year. You have a bad team this year. Philip is up next here on the program. Philip, thank you for calling and thank you for waiting. Go ahead.
Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I'm a big Titans fan, for me anyways, in my little world. And I just don't feel good about the Titans this year. I just don't. That's just my opinion. Didn't like Cam, didn't like Shador. My perfect scenario would be we get Peyton Manning for our head coach next year, and Art is our quarterback. That's just my opinion now.
Okay. Let me say this, Philip. That would be something. Thank you for your call. That would be something. I'm going to say this. Your general manager and president of football operations don't feel good about this team this year. So you're not alone in saying you do not feel good about the Titans. And I agree with you. I would not have drafted Cam Ward. I mean, again, I don't want to go down this. I would have signed Sam Darnold, and we'll see how that all works out. But I would have signed Sam Darnold, and I would have waited a couple of years before trying to go young at quarterback. I would have built up the team around Sam Darnold. Then I would have gone out and gotten a young quarterback, when I really found a guy that I like, the way that Kansas City did with Mahomes. That said, I think once you start saying the Arch Manning, Peyton Manning stuff, you're starting to get out there into cuckoo land a little bit. Although Colin Cowherd had a doozy. He said that it's the worst kept secret in the South that Cleveland is going to tank for Arch Manning, and they're going to make Nick Saban the coach, and the Haslams are tight with the Mannings, which is probably true, and with Jimmy Sexton, who is Nick Saban's agent. And so Saban is going to coach Arch Manning with the Browns next year, which I just do not believe. Do not believe it. More of your phone, 615-737-1025 here on the program. This week's Nashville's best deal is Eastside Bowl in Madison. Eastside Bowl is a vintage bowling alley, music venue, lounge, and arcade designed by locals for locals. Get 2 hours of bowling plus shoe rentals for up to 6 people for just $45 while supplies last. Go to theGameNashville.com/deals now to get yours today.
The energy that I felt when you guys came back in the building. I feel your confidence. I feel your excitement, right? Our execution, our effort, and our elimination of sins, right? That's the Titans trio. You want to see execution, you want to see unbelievable effort, and you want to see a team that plays a clean brand of football. Those are the things that we're focused on. What I get motivated by is the way that you guys came into work today. That's what motivates me. That's what gets me excited because I know what we have in this room because I believe in what you guys are capable of. And when you come in the building and you wake up in the morning, that's what should get you going, is that you know you got a group of guys in here that have put a ton of time and effort into it, and that we're going to be a team that plays hard and makes life hell for any team we play because we are capable of being a damn good football team. How many days until we play our first game? Anybody know? 47 days. So we should feel the urgency every time we walk in. It should be urgent as shit. We have to make each other better every day we step out.
So yesterday I made a big deal about that because I laughed at it, but he had a backwards cap on. And so this morning I got done with Sirius at 8 a.m. The 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. shift on Sirius is not bad. The getting up at 4 a.m. is a little tough, but you're off at 8 a.m. Like if Caroline and I did that show every day, 5 a.m. to 8 a.m., again, I'd hate waking up at 4 a.m., but at the same time, being off for the day at 8 a.m., not bad. So I go upstairs, I turn on Robbie and Rexroad, and there's Jake Lyman with a freaking backwards cap on, and I'm looking at him and Joe talk about that, and they're playing that Callahan cut, and it hit me that yesterday I was making a big deal about the backwards cap, which I still don't like, and I can still hear my Uncle Mark in my head saying, turn that cap around. But at the same time, I think that the backwards cap angle of this actually, Connor, correct me if I'm wrong, actually overlooked what was probably the bigger story, which is, man, that was kind of a lame speech from Callahan.
It was so Disney.
I mean, it was like we were talking, or I was spending so much time, talking about that backwards cap that I guess I overlooked the fact that, man, that speech was, that was a little rough. Like that was a little over the top for whatever that's worth. Somebody texted in as you even say that, Connor, and said, was that a movie? LOL. I mean, it felt kind of that way.
I mean, it was straight out of Friday Night Lights or something like that.
One texter says, you can scoff at it, but it was honestly a great speech. Hold on. Let's see. Let's see the area code on this. It's a 731 area code. Let's see where that is. Sometimes I wonder if like people on the staff like text in, defense, like they're anonymous. Western Tennessee. So no, that's probably a real person who thought it was an honestly great speech. Back to your phones as promised. One texter says, if this staff is truly professional, they will not rush Cam Ward. Another texter, Jay from Laverne, says, I agree 100%, Jared, when it comes to, hey, let's make sure Cam Ward's ready before we put him out there, even if that means that we have to watch Brandon Allen play quarterback. It's okay. Big picture, you're not going to remember the 3 weeks you had to watch Brandon Allen play. I know Brandon Allen stinks, but they all do. All the backup quarterbacks, for the most part, stink. And so we're not worried about who's better, Brandon Allen or Cam. We're worried about, is Cam going to hurt Cam by being put out there before he's ready? If he played the way that he reportedly played in practice today, if he's still doing that a month from now, then I think you need to make Brandon Allen a quarterback. One texter into the text line said, very little energy today. I don't know who this is. I wasn't at practice today. I don't think there are a lot of fans out there. I could be wrong. Texter said, very little energy today. Coaches, fans, players, all very quiet. No pads. Maybe part of the reason, but they could use some energy or chatter out there. Connor, you were at practice. Did you feel the same way?
The energy felt better today to me.
So that guy needs to bring it down a notch. By the way, somebody got mad at me about talking about the energy at practice yesterday. I'm like, you need to talk to D-Mace about that. I didn't know the energy at practice was bad. I got on the midday show yesterday, and D-Mace was like, yeah, the energy at practice wasn't very good. And I'm like, well, if Derek Mason is saying the energy at practice wasn't very good, well, Derek Mason probably knows a thing or two about the NFL. He's probably right. Although I do say that, at the same time, Derek does say some outrageous things. But when it comes to what the intensity of practice should be like, I think he would know. Now, in fairness, Callahan said this today, they're going through the ramp-up period. So it's like, hey, we're not going too hard on the first day, not going too hard on the second day. I don't know. Part of me is like, isn't that what you have a conditioning test for? You do the conditioning test. Everybody's in shape. All right, let's go practice. That's just me. Cody says, this is a tired discussion. These guys have it or they don't. I 100% believe, again, this is not Jared who's saying this. I 100% believe Rodgers, Mahomes, or Brady would have still been a Hall of Fame caliber player if they didn't sit. They would have just had more growing pains similar to Peyton Manning if they played right away. Play Cam and find out through the process. So, the audacity of that comment. I 100% believe Tom Brady would have been in the Hall of Fame if Tom Brady had been put out there right away. You know who doesn't believe that? Tom Brady doesn't believe that. Because Tom Brady did an interview with Colin Cowherd. I can get you the cut. Tom Brady did an interview with Colin Cowherd in which he talked about why these quarterbacks fail and why he didn't fail. And he talked about the fact that, hey, I sat a year behind Drew Bledsoe and I learned from Charlie Weiss and Bill Belichick, and not everybody gets Dante Scarnecchia as their offensive line coach. And the audacity to think, you know what? And Joe Rexrode thinks this too, which I think is ridiculous. The audacity to think that, oh, Mahomes would have been good no matter what. Really? You don't think Andy Reid and the specific plan that Andy Reid had for Mahomes, you don't think that that's played a role in why Mahomes is so good? You just think it's as simple as you either got it or you don't. So if they had put Steve McNair out there at quarterback in 1995, straight out of Alcorn State, we'll ask Coach Steckel this. If they had just taken Steve McNair right from Alcorn State and stuck him right out there in the NFL, you think 10 years later he would have been league MVP? I don't think so. Again, the arrogance of, I believe 100% all these guys that are good would have been good no matter what. As if it's some sort of manifest destiny. It's just so ridiculous. It's just so ridiculous. Logan says that Big Joe said today that Cam looked good and that the Titans may have found something if they can build around him. I mean, I don't want to be rude here, Connor, but could Big Joe even watch practice today? Wasn't he on the air during practice?
That's why I'm kind of laughing, because he was on the air and the fans were in front of his tent. So he had to stand up to see just a glimmer of Cam Ward.
Yeah, I mean, like if you're on the air, you can't watch practice. As somebody who's been on the air at practice, you're either on the air or you're watching practice. You can't do both. Unless you're like giving a play-by-play of practice. 2nd down and 4 from the 37-yard line. Ward, 2 receivers to the left, 1 to the right. He moves Alec Io Manor in motion. He takes a snap. He rolls to his left. He's in trouble. He gets away. He throws it across the middle of the field. Pass intercepted by Cody Barton. From the 45 to the 40 to the 30 to the 20 to the 10 to the 5, and that's a touchdown. Unless you're doing play-by-play of practice, I don't know how Big Joe, how could Big Joe have seen that? I mean, in all seriousness, how could he have seen that? One texter says, I'm so glad I saw the writing on the wall and sold my PSL. What I have used has given me more return on investment than 5 years of PSLs ever gave me. Let me say this. So I'll use the Bengals as the example. I'm going to defend the Titans PSLs here for a second, even though I think PSLs are a total ripoff in general. Cincinnati, horse crap organization. We can all agree, right? I mean, look at them right now. They can't get a deal with their first-round pick or their leading sacker. They've got the best offense maybe in the entire league, and they cannot get their defense paid and in training camp. Bengals are maybe the worst organization, if not one of the worst in football. Indianapolis was like this. But God bless them. They got Peyton Manning. Cincinnati got Joe Burrow. I think it's fair to say, no disrespect to Belichick or Robert Kraft, who I think both belong in the Hall of Fame, but God bless them too. With the boy out of Michigan at 199. You guys can crap on the PSLs all you want. The Titans strike gold with Cam or somebody else, and everybody will want tickets to the game. And again, in this league, Just because you're bad today doesn't mean you'll be bad forever. I don't feel good about the Titans getting good anytime soon, but it doesn't mean that you're going to be bad forever. 615-737-1025, which is the phone number, 615-737-1025. So Brian Callahan said something that I don't know if he actually believes, but I'll just say I'll believe it when I see it. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. So the Titans, day 2 of practice, and it sounds like the defense is dominating, but if there's anything we've learned over the last couple of years about training camp practice, it's if the defense is dominating, that is not always a good sign. Again, in 2023, I thought the Titans were going to have one of the top defenses in the NFL. No, it just happened that they were going up against Aaron Brewer and Andre Dillard every single practice. And then last year was kind of more the same. This time it was PT and that of bozos that was out there instead. So when it comes to the Titans defense, I'm not really sure I care about anything they do in training camp, and I file it all under I'll believe it when I see it. But today, Brian Callahan was asked about the pass rush because the reality is when it comes to the Titans, they didn't have any pass rush last year. They released their leading sacker, Harold Landry. He's now a New England Patriot. They didn't really add any impact sackers. Yeah, sure, they signed a Draymond Jones and Lorenzo Carter, who retired, and now they've added Jihad Ward, whoever the hell that is. And I guess they drafted Femi Oladejo in the second round, but let's not kid ourselves. When it comes to sacking the quarterback, the Titans do not have Danico Autry out there anymore the way they used to. But Brian Callahan says, do not worry. They are going to scheme their way to sacks this season. Here's what Brian Callahan said.
Yeah, we got to get the quarterback. I think, like I said before, we had quite a high number of missed sacks. We got the quarterback in our grasp, but we're right in position to make it, and we don't get him on the ground. So we got to do that better. I think how we're going to rush this year, how we're going to deploy the people to rush, I think is going to be maybe a little bit, different from maybe years past. But we're going to find a way to collectively rush better and get the quarterback on the ground. There's a lot of things that go into that. The balancing of the rush, the technique and how you rush. And I think one of the things for the size that you see that we've added, there's a crushing of the pocket as opposed to maybe more pure pass rush moves and things like that, where we're trying to collapse the pocket on the quarterback. So those are things that we're doing. That's kind of why we have the style of players we have. And it hopefully is translating to some more quarterback sacks and not just pressure.
Okay. So he just said right there that the scheme is going this season to get them to sack the quarterback. Again, file that under I'll believe it when I see it. If changing the scheme can lead to pressure, can I ask why the Titans didn't do it last year? Again, was Harold Landry, who was their leading sacker a year ago, was he a scheme impediment? That, we can't deploy the guys the way we want to deploy them to go sack the quarterback because Harold Landry isn't good enough or isn't flexible enough for us to be able to do it. Darn that, Harold Landry. I doubt it. And look, I get it. The coaches always have to say, we will find a way, because frankly, that's what they're paid to do. But I have a hard time believing that the Titans are going to be able to rush the passer this year unless Femi Oladejo is Javon Curse. If you remember, Javon Curse at Florida played all these different positions. Teams in the NFL didn't know where to play him, which is why he lasted until the 16th pick in the draft. If Javon Curse had played defensive end at Florida, he would have gone number 3. Instead, he goes at number 16 because people don't know what he really is. Femi Oladejo, again, played inside backer in college. Then he was moved at the end to outside backer, and now he's playing pass rusher for the Titans. And so if Femi Oladejo is the freak where, UCLA just used him wrong and they didn't know until the last game of the year where to put him, and so he becomes Javon Curse and gets 15 sacks as a rookie, then I'll say, okay, they've got a shot. But this idea with the players they have that they're going to scheme up sacks this year is ludicrous. I mean, that's ridiculous. Again, I go back to what I just said, which is if it were that simple of, the way that we're going to do it this year, we're going to deploy these guys differently. We're going to scheme it differently. Why didn't they do that last year? I mean, the guys that are really plaguing on the defensive line, Jeffrey Simmons on the team last year. Tavondre Sweat, on the team last year. Draymond Jones, not on the team last year. Sebastian Joseph Day, on the team last year. So it's not as if this is a complete makeover and a totally new group. This is not the pass catchers of the Seattle Seahawks, where DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are gone and Cooper Kupp is in. This is roughly the same group. And it's not as if the Titans went out and hired the best defensive coordinator in the NFL. This is why I said, if I were the Titans at the end of last year and I had decided to keep Brian Callahan, I would have made Brian Callahan fire Denard Wilson and go hire an experienced defensive coordinator. You know, again, an old guy who you're just giving that guy the defense. Dean Pease. We'll use him as the example. Just go get Dean Pease and give the defense to Pawpaw Dean and say, all right, Dean, you're running the defense. But they didn't do it. This is the same defensive coordinator that they had last year. Again, if you can just make the scheme different, then why didn't you do that last season? Arden Key was here last year. So this is when it comes to Callahan, and I'm like, you don't get the benefit of the doubt on this. You do not. You cannot go an entire offseason where you really don't upgrade your pass rush. Again, Draymond Jones and Femi Oladejo in, but Harold Landry, your leading sacker, out. You don't really upgrade your pass rush, and then you get in front of the cameras and you say, well, we will sack the quarterback this year because we're going to deploy the guys differently, and our scheme is going to get pressure this year. I don't buy that. And if you can't get pressure on the quarterback, I also, by the way, I don't buy this narrative that Callahan's trying to push that, well, we got our hands on the quarterback last year. We just didn't get him on the ground. Bull crap. They did not pressure the quarterback last year. Worth a crap. Danico Autry, very good at pressuring the quarterback. He left. Sweat came in. Sweat doesn't pressure the quarterback, so they got no pressure on the quarterback because Simmons, when he would get pressure on the quarterback, was because he was playing in tandem with Autry, and now Autry's gone. So the same coaches, roughly the same players, now with a new scheme, and they want you to believe they're going to sack the quarterback. Bull crap. And if you believe that, I'm sorry. I don't know how you can get there. The way I look at it is, it's just like playing quarterback. Again, you can scheme things up with an average quarterback, and it can look good for a while. But at no point, while Ryan Tannehill was lighting up the NFL over those 2 years with Arthur Smith, at no point did we look at Ryan Tannehill and think he was Patrick Mahomes. When it comes to pass rush in the NFL, either you can sack the quarterback or you can't sack the quarterback. When you've got the Eagles defensive line with Jalen Carter in there looking like Albert Hainsworth, you're going to be able to sack the quarterback. It doesn't matter what the scheme is. And with the Titans, I know who they have sacking the quarterback, and I know it's not good enough to go sack the quarterback. And if you can't pressure the quarterback in today's NFL, because you cannot be physical anymore with receivers, if you cannot pressure the quarterback and turn the quarterback over, your defense isn't going to be very good. That's just how it is. This team, again, unless Femi Oladejo is the freak, this team is not going to pressure the quarterback. And if you're not going to pressure the quarterback, you're not going to be very good. So, again, do I think the defense will be better than it was last year? Not really. And do I think they can be any good as a football team if the defense is no good? Not really. And if you don't sack, you're not going to be very good on defense. It's as simple as that. And if you do sack, as we've seen with Mahomes in his 2 Super Bowl losses, if you do sack, you can go out there against Sammy Ball, or you can go out there against Roger Staubach, or Joe Montana, or Tom Brady, and you can beat their ass. Because if you can sack, you can beat anybody. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number. We'll get to your phones. Plus, the one thing I do believe when it comes to sacks with the Titans, There's one thing I haven't heard a lot of people talk about that I actually do buy and I actually do understand. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 Game.
with sizes and everything, but it's like you're working towards being bigger up front, but your best player got smaller. Can you help me just kind of understand the correlation there?
Well, he's still a 300-pound human, TD. It's, I would say smaller is not the word I would use. I would say he got leaner. And I think that is the difference. His lean body mass and his strength are still exactly what it was, 20 pounds heavier, but he's got different weight on him. And I think his power is going to be the same. But yesterday, I pointed it out in a team meeting, Jeff was running down, coming out of the stacks, chasing the ball down and hit 18.2 miles an hour in practice, which for a man of his size is really impressive. And I think that's what you see from a guy that, refined his body type and he's become a little faster, but I don't think he's lost any power or strength by any stretch.
There you go. That was Brian Callahan. Jeffrey Simmons losing that weight. Let me say this. I've seen, like Jeffrey Simmons did his press conference yesterday. He definitely is leaner, and I don't know if he's meaner or not, but he's definitely leaner. He's definitely lost some weight. And I have a theory, and I haven't heard anybody say this, but I truly believe this. I believe that the reason that Jeffrey Simmons lost that weight is because Jeffrey Simmons has said, screw it, I'm going to try to go get more sacks. And guess what? I'm cool with that. I think Simmons has decided I'm going to be like Chris Jones, and I'm going to go line up over tackle. If you've got a bad tackle, I'm lining up over him. If you've got PT at right tackle, I don't give a rat's ass where everybody else plays. I'm lining up over him, and I'm going to go sack the quarterback. And I'm actually cool with that. And I think what's happened, because I know Jeffrey Simmons, I think what's happened is Jeffrey Simmons is sick of hearing people like, I don't know, Jared Stillman complain about how he doesn't sack the quarterback. And if I were Simmons and I was sick and tired of hearing Jared Stillman and Paul Kaharski complain about how I don't sack the quarterback, and my team was going to suck anyways, to the point where the president of football operations is telling the fans to be patient and giggling about the idea of a Super Bowl, I'd probably say, well, screw that. I'm going to go get mine. Because if I'm going to be on this crap team, I might as well go sack the quarterback. I might as well, so that way when I get 9.5 sacks this year, I don't have to listen to people come up to my locker to say, why am I not getting the sacks? I'm getting the sacks. We just suck. Blame everybody else. Because Simmons has already done a good job of saying blame everybody else, but the blame everybody else is incredibly hollow when he's only getting 5.5 sacks. So I think Simmons looked at it and made a calculated effort. Before he was bigger, when there was Landry, when there was Autry, when there was Bud Dupree, and it was, okay, everybody in this four-man group plays a role. All four of you play a role. And even though Bud Dupree wasn't healthy very often, and then Harold Landry tore his ACL right before the start of the 22 season, in that 2021 season, when Bud Dupree was healthy, and Danico Autry was healthy, and Harold Landry was healthy, and Jeffrey Simmons, they were mean. Like, that was a pass rush in 2021. Which, by the way, goes back to the fact that it's all about the Jimmies and the Joes and not the X's and O's, because Vrabel and Shane Bowen were calling the defense in 2020, and they didn't have Autry, and they didn't have Dupree, and they had some guy named Jack Crawford out there, and they didn't get any sacks. But again, like at that point, Simmons was playing a role, 1 out of 4 guys hitting in the lineup, and if Simmons was asked to bunt for the better of the team, then Simmons would bunt. But now Simmons is looking at the rest of the guys saying these guys all suck anyways. So guess what? I'm swinging for the fences. I'm going to go sack the quarterback. And how do you do that? You get leaner, you get faster, you go after the quarterback. I don't have a problem with it. But if you think that it's like, oh, the Titans defense, the Titans have figured out this body composition with lean mass percentage, and they sat down with Simmons and they went over the analysis of the percentage, and this is what no. Simmons said, I want to go sack the quarterback so that everybody will get off my ass for not sacking the quarterback, because every interview that he did over the offseason was him talking about how the media sucks because he doesn't get any sacks, and he feels like, in his words, a butthole because he's always pushing back on why he doesn't get sacks. That's my theory. One texter says, the Titans will break the sack record this season. You watch, Jared. Least sacks in an NFL season. I'm just going to say this. I don't think they're going to sack the quarterback really at all this year. I don't think the defense is going to be very good. I think this team is going to be abysmal. It would not shock me if they end up picking number 1 overall next year. I don't think they will. If I had to handicap it for you today, I think I have New Orleans picking number 1. But I'd be stunned if they're not picking in the top 5 next year. This team's going to be bad. That said, I don't think there's any way the pass rush for this football team can be worse than it was in 2020. Like, I know that 2020 was 5 years ago, so we forget about that. But I don't think you guys remember that. The Titans had the number 2 offense in the league. And every freaking game, it felt like, was a skin of their teeth. Tannehill and A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry pulling it out of their rectums because this defense was so freaking bad. They played a game at Minnesota where I think Justin Jefferson, that was his big coming out party. He had something like 7 catches for 170 yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean, that team could not get any pressure on any quarterback. You knew it right away in week 2 when Gardner Minshew was back there in Jacksonville just patting the ball. And every week, it took a miracle for them to win a game. The defense was so bad that year. And so no matter what you say about how bad this team's going to be on defense this year, I'm telling you, there's no way the pass rush can be worse than it was in 2020. No way. One texter says the only sacks the Titans defense is likely to see this year are the bags their significant others bring home from the store on Fifth Avenue in New York. Hey, by the way, my credit card gets me a $50 sacks credit every 6 months. I have yet to use it yet. I need to go to Saks. I'm trying to find something for like $49 at Saks so I can get my $50 credit from my credit card, but I have yet to see anything. One texter says, I'm not a Titans fan, and I, 98% of the time, disagree with you, Mr. Stillman. But having lived here for a few years and witnessing the rise and fall of the Titans by virtue of proximity, I completely agree with you on the take of protecting Cam Ward. I don't want to risk Cam Ward getting killed early in his career due to incompetence. You know, it's hilarious. These people are like, you know, in this NFL, you don't get the years to sit a quarterback on the bench anymore. GMs don't get chances. Really? Because Ryan Poles with the Bears signed a contract extension and he stinks. Chris Ballard never gets fired in Indianapolis. He stinks. I do think sometimes you get some of that for whatever it's worth. Steve says, Jared, why don't you go to practices? Have you been banned from the facility? Every single person that covers the Titans is there except for you. Explain. How can you claim to be making commentary on a football team that you don't even watch play? First of all, there have been 2 practices. I haven't been to either of them because I have been sick. Because they don't want me out at practice to get other people sick. It's not like I just didn't go to practice because I've been banned from the facility. I have not been banned from the Titans facility. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. 615-737-1025 here on the program. So, that being said, we never, ever, ever talk wrestling. But today, the world lost a wrestling icon in Hulk Hogan. And I think we need to talk about Hulk Hogan, brother. So Chase is going to join us, and we're going to remember Hulk Hogan. Next, Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. 1025 The Game at Souls for Souls have teamed up for a back-to-school fundraiser. Souls for the 615 to provide new shoes for kids experiencing homelessness in Nashville. Help a child in Middle Tennessee step into the new school year with confidence by donating $20 for a new pair of athletic shoes. For more information and to donate, visit thegamenashville.com/shoes. So, a sad day in the wrestling community. I was shocked when I saw this news today that Hulk Hogan had passed away at the age of 71 years old. And talk about legends. I was thinking about this kind of for our demographic, which is men from the age of about 25 to 54, maybe a little bit older than that. So maybe 30 to 70. Hulk Hogan is probably like a top 10, if I had to guess, athlete of that generation. So Chase is with us on the program.
Hello, Jared.
Chase, I'm not a big wrestling guy. You know that. But wouldn't you say Hulk Hogan of our generation is probably a top 10 athlete? Of Michael Jordan is probably up there, number one, if I had to get Michael Jordan, Tom Brady.
Tiger
Woods, absolutely up there.
Yeah.
Where is Hulk Hogan in all of this? And your reaction to the news today of Hulk Hogan's passing?
Well, I was on the air when it happened, and I literally stopped talking for a second. And Joe was like, "What?" And I'm like, "I'm making sure that," but you know how it is. Like, you see something on Twitter and you want to make sure it's true before you say it on the air. And I was like, Hulk Hogan's died according to TMZ, and then it obviously blew up. I mean, yeah, probably for our generation, I would say so. And here's the point. You have proven the point by having me on to talk about this, because as you've said, you're not a wrestling fan. You don't talk wrestling on your show, but Hulk Hogan kind of transcended that. Like, he was the guy that even, it's like Dale Earnhardt. Even if you weren't a racing fan, you knew who Dale Earnhardt was. You know who Dale Earnhardt Jr. is. And so Hulk Hogan is kind of the same thing. And look, he's a lightning rod figure. He was a hero to so many in the 80s, and then in the 90s kind of had the bad guy look, but still, for wrestling fans was, I mean, like, he's the NWO and our generation. I mean, you probably going to USN had friends or people that, had the NWO for life or whatever. And so it was just like,
I played the N64 video game.
Yeah.
When it had Goldberg and Rey Mysterio Jr. and Bagwell and all those guys in it. And I think Hulk Hogan was kind of the main guy.
Of course he was. Sting. I mean, so I mean, that's kind of what this is. It's interesting to see the reaction, because, he did have, I put it as, he had flaws and had missteps, and obviously was caught on a tape saying, racial things, and he paid for that. And a lot of people didn't forgive him for that. And so it's interesting to see just how this guy that was absolutely untouchable in the 80s and 90s and was, you say pro wrestling, Hulk Hogan, like, immediately was the name that you said, to just see the, I guess now, how polarizing is the word I'm looking for, he truly was.
So when it comes to kind of the missteps there that you brought up, that we all know about, and it kind of canceled him for what, 5-6 years.
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan kind of just went away. How much do you think that in a moment like this, that's remembered and talked about? And how much of it do you think is the true entertainer that he was for really 30 years?
If you base everything on Twitter, which is a dangerous game to play, it's pretty 50-50. I mean, I quoted the story that he had passed and was like, man, a legend gone, say take your vitamins, say your prayers, NWO for life, RIP. And I said, he was a flawed human, like a lot of us. And, some people were like, no, he was a racist. That's not flawed. Like, that he said these things like that's not okay. And I get that. And everybody that feels that way certainly has the right to feel that way. I mean, I was disappointed. I was hurt as a guy that was a fan of his growing up to hear those things. But I then think there are other people that have kind of looked at it as, look, no one is perfect. God tells you to forgive, and they've done that. WWE kicked him out of the Hall of Fame. Their biggest superstar that they have ever had. They are not a company today if it is not for Hulk Hogan. They kicked him out of their Hall of Fame when all of that happened. Now they have since reinstated him, and everything's, all good now. But I mean, that shows you the impact that had. So I don't think I think in some ways it could have been forgiven. It wasn't forgotten.
When it comes to his impact, you said on the WWE, do you think there is any wrestler that is in his ballpark? Like if we were to talk about the greatest wrestlers of all time, where does he rank? Is he for sure number one? And who else would be in that zip code?
That's an interesting question. I would say no, he's not number one. I mean, John Cena has probably
The Rock.
I mean, has probably surpassed that from a entertainment, like more than wrestling standpoint. Stone Cold Steve Austin is kind of viewed as in some people's circles as the best of all time. So it kind of depends on who you ask. The difference is who are the guys that, oh, he's just a pro wrestler, and then who are the guys that, oh, that's an entertainer, that's a sports entertainer. That is a very small list. I mean, Ric Flair kind of has his own little category, but Hulk Hogan, John Cena, The Rock, Stone Cold, those are the guys that you kind of like. Again, if you're not a fan of wrestling, if I say one of those names, you're going to go, oh yeah, I know who that is. I mean, so I think that's kind of how you answer that.
How has everybody in the wrestling world reacted? Again, you brought up the fact that he did get kicked out of the Hall of Fame. Then they decided to kind of water under the bridge. But how has the wrestling world reacted? Have they reacted with, we loved him, but, or have they just reacted with, oh, this is devastating, he was the greatest and we're going to miss him?
Most of the wrestling people, I think, have reacted with that, he was a legend and there's a ton of respect. The interesting thing is the wrestling business is a pretty dog eat dog business. And there are a lot of guys that while they may have had that respect for him, they didn't like him very much because he was, there's a phrase you may hear people use, that ain't going to work for me, brother. Because he was asked to put somebody over and he said no. So I think the respect is there. A lot of wrestlers have tweeted out even and said, like, we weren't friends necessarily, but I respect what he did for the business and what he is, having working with him and all that stuff. So I definitely think those types of tributes are going to continue to come. I would imagine WWE will do something pretty big tomorrow on SmackDown because, again, they have to acknowledge, just like they want to not mention Vince McMahon anymore, they don't exist without those two. So they will certainly do something for him.
Okay, so in that regard, you said that some of these other wrestlers don't like him, but isn't that all for show? Like, isn't that all just kind of, oh, let's pick on each other on wrestling, oh, I'll kill you and your family, brother. Isn't that all for show? Like when the guy dies, don't you kind of say, oh yeah, we kind of pretended to fight at Summer Slapdown 43, but really deep down inside, we loved each other.
Well, let me put it to you like this. Do you think everybody in this business likes you?
I mean, I think that for the most part, like quite frankly, I think I am more well-liked, behind the scenes in the media than I am than people would admit to.
Sure. But I think people respect what you do. I think they respect your work ethic. And if they don't know you. And that's the thing. So I think Hulk Hogan was viewed as a guy that had a ginormous ego. And that, to make it in the wrestling business, you kind of have to have that. And he knew how important he was to the wrestling business. And I think that rubs some people the wrong way. And a lot of times when something like that rubs someone the wrong way, it's based on jealousy. And, but there were some things, there's documentaries of that he wasn't willing to, people were like, hey man, I'll lay down for you. I'll do this for you. I know you'll get me back. And he never got him back. And so I think that was kind of where some of that came from.
So now the next step here, before we get to how they're going to honor him, did they know he was sick? Like, was he sick? Do we know what happened to Hulk Hogan? Like, do we know any more details other than he passed away at the age of 71 years old?
I don't think so. Everything I've seen, and I guess there's a 911 tape that he had a cardiac episode this morning. And so, you know, and I mean, I don't know how to word this right, but we all know that in the 80s and the early 90s, a lot of these guys were using steroids. I mean, baseball, we've talked about it. And so that is one thing that you kind of worry about is some of them. And he had the largest arms in the world of, as they get older, what kind of effects that's had on their bodies. And so that was the word that he was at his house and there was a call, there was a cardiac episode. I think I saw some rumors of, oh man, he may not look good. And then a video's come out of him like 2 days ago and he looked fine. He looked like Hulk Hogan. So I don't think he was in bad health.
So this was all kind of a surprise, like a sudden.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, 71, you know, today's standards is pretty young. Like that's not that old. So, and he was in good shape. I mean, he was, had his Real American beer. I mean, he had done some stuff with AF1 and, had his, bar down in Tampa and his, or Clearwater and, been kind of back in wrestling some. And so he was definitely out there doing more and certainly looked like the Hulk Hogan that we all knew.
Where would you put him if you were born in 1985?
Okay.
Of the athletes of that generation. So 1985, you're 40 years old.
Yep.
Where would you rank Hulk Hogan as far as athletes of that generation at that given time?
Okay. So, I mean, we're talking like Walter Payton. We're talking.
Well, if you were born in 1985, Walter Payton's probably a little bit before your time.
Right. I was 87. So, I mean, I'm
like
right.
Emmitt Smith is probably.
Okay. All right. I see what you're saying. I mean,
Jordan won.
Jordan's won, no question. I mean, Tiger kind of comes into it. You know, I was 10 years old when he won the Masters for the first time. I mean, Hulk's probably 8th on that list, maybe. I mean, I'm trying to think through. I mean,
is there a baseball player from that era that has Hulk Hogan's level of cachet?
Junior? Ken Griffey Jr. maybe?
I don't know.
I mean, again, it's to answer the question, it's
Jeter.
Does Joe Schmo that never watched baseball know who Eric Jeter is?
Probably.
I mean, they should, but I mean that's the
I mean,
question.
I don't watch wrestling and I know who Hulk Hogan is.
That's my point. That's what I'm trying to say. Like to say that type of athlete, like they got like, you know, they got to be a Michael Jordan, a Tiger Woods, you know, a Dale Earnhardt, you know, somebody that even if you don't care about their sport, you're going to know who they are.
That's I remember when Dale Earnhardt died. I didn't know anything about NASCAR. And I remember when he died being like, Dale Earnhardt died? Like, that's how little but I knew who Dale Earnhardt was.
Right.
Hulk Hogan, a surprise today to find out he had passed away at the age of 71. Vingan, by the way, texted me. I don't know if he texted you. He said, don't forget about Hogan's racism. I feel like we covered the racism.
We covered the racism.
In this discussion. But
and look, that was a terrible thing. That was wrong. And I
mean, like some people in the text line are all like, most of the text line loves Hulk Hogan, apparently. Apparently some people are like, well, he got into politics. And let me just say this. If you didn't know what side of the political equator Hulk Hogan was on, I'm sorry, I can't help you. Secondly, if you are determining who to vote for based on what Hulk Hogan tells you to do, I think you've got bigger problems than who Hulk Hogan's voting for, if I had to say that.
Yeah, I agree. And
I mean, come on now.
It is, you know, you bring that up. It is kind of sad to me. His last appearance on WWE was in LA. It was right after the election, and he got booed out of the building because
he was a big Trump supporter.
He's a Trump guy. Yeah.
And he was in LA.
Well,
there you go. Chase McCabe. Chase, thank you for joining us.
In the words of Hulk Hogan, thanks, brother.
Thank you, brother. 615-737-1025. Hulk Hogan, again, gone too soon at the age of 71 years old. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game.
I gotta know, what's tougher, running an NFL practice or a collegiate practice?
I mean, they're both great. Love to be on the field, love to be working with the players and helping them develop and, in this case, help them reach their dreams. But it'll be good to be out there on the field. We're getting going soon, and I look forward to it.
Bill Belichick, conference media days. So apparently there is a story out there. This is via Inside Carolina, which I wonder which, I think it's 24/7 Sports. Inside Carolina covers the Carolina Tar Heels. And apparently sources tell Inside Carolina that North Carolina is among the schools that are exploring a potential move from the ACC to the SEC. Under Chancellor Lee Roberts and incoming athletic director Steve Newmark, the Tar Heels could be leading the pack alongside Clemson. So again, that's the report. North Carolina at ACC Media Days today. They actually call it ACC Kickoff. I guess that's kind of their thing. But North Carolina is interested in joining the SEC. Can I ask a serious question? First of all, if they were to do that, by the time Carolina gets to the SEC, Belichick would certainly not be coaching at North Carolina. And I did see an article that said ESPN is prioritizing North Carolina football this year because they think it will have a ratings impact like Deion Sanders has had for Colorado. I'm not so sure, but I'm not going to rule it out either. I'm not saying that I'm all in on watching Belichick's football games. If Belichick's Carolina team is good and most people think that Belichick's team is going to be bad, then I'm probably not going to watch. If they're good, then I think I'll probably watch a little bit. That said, let me just say this. Does the SEC really want North Carolina in it? Yes, it would be good for basketball. Let's not kid ourselves. You get Tennessee, Carolina twice a year. Carolina coming to Memorial Gym certainly would sell it out. Kentucky, Carolina, even though they do play, don't they play every year in one of those, CBS Vegas tournament, something or another? I don't know. Connor, you would know that better than I would. Don't Carolina, Kentucky play every year?
They rotate. They play in the CBS Sports Classic, but it rotates between 4 teams.
Okay, so they play enough. But imagine in the SEC, would that be bad? No. But we don't need North Carolina in the SEC, do we? Like, that's my whole thing with these ACC schools. Because I think these ACC schools would bolt at the first second that they get to get out of the ACC to make the money of the Big Ten or the SEC. But how many of these schools would actually leave the ACC and would be wanted somewhere else? I'm like, I don't think that the SEC would want Clemson. I don't think the SEC would want Florida State. Clemson and Florida State have been trying to sue their way out of the ACC for the last couple of years. It's now been settled to where the exit fees are significantly less than they thought before. And yet I'm not sure anybody wants Florida State or anybody really wants Clemson outside of the ACC. I don't think the SEC wants them. Carolina, I have long believed, has more value to the SEC or the Big Ten than because of the geography and because of the basketball, that they would have more cachet than really any of the other ACC schools looking to jump. That said, if you take Carolina, I think you have to take Duke. If you're the SEC, is it worth what you get in basketball? Because that's really the game. You don't get anything if you're the SEC by adding Duke football. Like, that's not going to be. Kirk Herbstreit is not calling Duke football games. And he might call one North Carolina game every blue moon. So is it what you're getting in basketball, where Kentucky Duke would be a big matchup, Tennessee Duke would be a big matchup, Carolina Duke is always a big matchup. Carolina Duke draws a football rating pretty much every year. Would it be worth it? And I just don't think it would be. I just don't think it would be. I think in the previous conference realignment, so like the 2010s conference realignment, Carolina would be wanted by everybody because of the cable TV markets you get, but they don't care about cable TV markets anymore. So Carolina, according to Inside Carolina, looking to go to the SEC. Again, my question is, does the SEC really want them? Do you, as an SEC fan, do you want Carolina? I say that, by the way, as somebody wearing a clearly Carolina blue shirt today. But no, I'm not sure I want Carolina in the SEC. Okay, TD has been out on the practice field the last 2 days. His thoughts, his sights, his views, what he's seen. TD joins us next for the TD Power Hour. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 through the game. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Joined by TD, 4 o'clock. Of course, it's time for the TD Power Hour. TD, I'm watching the video. Apparently, somebody took a video. I didn't even know that the media, and I don't think the media took this video. But I'm watching the video of the Cam Ward interception to Cody Barton today. I didn't know people could take videos out at practice of things like that, but there's a video online of the Cam Ward interception. A little surprised by that. So,
yeah,
how are you through the first 2 days of practice?
Hey, man, in heaven, at these couple of days of practice, getting to watch the guys do their thing. I'm not sure what video you saw, but I will say this. I talked to Cody Barton about the interception afterwards, and he said that it was a play. And this is where I like having a guy like Cody Barton be so willing to talk, because apparently what happened, he saw this same play yesterday, and he knew that Cam wanted to go to that particular area of the field. It was kind of like a seam route. He knew that Cam wanted to go there, and so instead of his little like hook curl zone where he was supposed to settle, he just busted his behind back into the passing lane, and that's how he was able to pick it off.
That, by the way, is something, that's why I think we see a lot of these joint practices, is because the defenses do know and start to learn the offense's plays. I do wonder, the first 2 days so far overall, I haven't been out there, tell me everything that's been happening at camp.
Oh, man. So you got to start reading the notes, man. You're once again showing that you don't read.
I actually have been reading the notes. I just wanted the listeners to.
Yeah, no, you're good, man. I got to mess with you. It's been a while since we got to speak. So, I think when you look at today, the defense definitely had a better day. A lot of it, they were doing a lot of like play action and just moving the pocket. And I will say, when they moved to the offense's right, like every time Cam rolled out to the right, Femi Oladejo or Draymond Jones or one of those guys were able to get pressure on the quarterback. Now, that's not exactly all on J.C. Latham. Sometimes these guys were able to come uncovered, and it's like, hey, get the ball out to your hot read and make it happen. And that's what Cam was able to do a couple of times, but it was a little difficult. That pressure, they were causing some overthrows. So you had that. I think when you look at the secondary, their coverage for the most part was solid. Cody Barton, James Williams, those guys were able to do some things, especially Williams, getting in the backfield and blowing up plays. Jeffrey Simmons had two what would have been tackles for loss. So today, I think it's safe to say the defense won. Now, I would say yesterday it was all quick passing game, and that's something that Cameron Ward said he's really focusing on, just the timing and making sure that all of that is right. And there were maybe 2 or 3 passes that went more than 20 yards. Like everything was middle of the field, quick passing, swing. Those type of quick. Can't really like describe the offense, as much because of the rules that we have in place. But I'll put it this way: everything was quick.
Do you think that the first 2 days have been a sign that the offensive line is going to be a serious work in progress this year? Because it does look better on paper.
They're not even in pads. Like, you know what I mean? They're not even in pads. You can't really...
I know, but Andre Dillard and Dylan Radins were getting busted up without pads.
And I think it's safe to say, at least Dylan Radins, he's come along, but I think it's safe to say Andre Dillard is an exception as far as like the quality of player.
He got worse when the pads went on.
Yeah. Because the physicality was introduced to the game a little bit more. And we know that he's not someone that embraces that. So, yeah, you're going to have that. But to your question, no, there's nothing to worry about with the offensive line. It's still, like I said, they're not in pads. You can't really get a full eval on offensive linemen.
Who has kind of showed out so far early on in camp?
Cody Barton. I would say Cody Barton has Tajay Spears is impressive. And I know I remember back when Derrick Henry was here, you and Chris and D-Mays, like you guys would get into intense arguments because they insisted on how much juice Tajay Spears has, but he has that juice again. You could see it. He's very sudden and quick with how he hits the hole, and then he bounces it outside and he runs. And it's been impressive. So I say Tajay Spears.
Was he hurt last year?
Yeah, multiple. I mean, he had the concussions. He had I don't remember exactly what injury. I think it was a hamstring, but yeah, he was hurt. And that was the big reason why there was such an imbalance in the carries. And Brian Callahan wants to get that evened out a little more. And I think if you look at Tony Pollard, he had 260 carries last year, career high. And if you could just kind of take 60 of those carries away and give them to Spears, I think that's where you'll get the balance.
Who else has shown out? The young guys, you've mentioned Oladejo, of him coming off the edge.
Mm-hmm.
What have you seen out of him and some of the young guys so far, both offense and defense?
Yeah, what's really refreshing is the energy that Femi Oladejo plays with. And he's a guy that even if it's a run to the opposite side, you're going to see 7 down the field trying to run it down, right, and try to punch the ball out. And there's a lot of effort with him. So definitely have to shout him out for that energy and what he's doing. He's getting some pretty significant reps. I talked to Arden Key after practice today about it. And he was like, yeah, man, a young fella, like he goes. And, Arden Key is a ball of energy himself. So who else has impressed? Look, Kevin Winston Jr., watch out. Because if they run a lot of 3 safety types of defensive packages, I could definitely see him out there and having an impact, right? So he had an interception today. He and one of the other receivers, I forget who it was, they kind of battled for the ball as they went to the ground, and he wrestled it away. I'll say him. Jarvis Brownlee Jr. yesterday he had a couple nice PBUs, and then he spit up after his second one. He and Traylon Burks went up. So, he's been impressive. That's about it. And remember, it's only 2 days. So,
when you bring up Oladejo, I'm going to ask a really loaded question because I don't think it's completely fair to ask at this point through 2 days with no pads. But is there a chance with Oladejo that there may be a little Javon curse from the standpoint that
don't do that to him?
I'm not going to say
don't do that to him.
But what I do mean by this is Javon Curse should have been the number 3 pick in the draft, number 2 pick in the draft, or whatever it was. But the reason why he fell to 16 was because he was moved around so much in college that teams weren't sure at the NFL level what position he was actually going to play. Was he an off-ball linebacker? Was he a 4-3 D end? Was he an inside backer like he played at Florida? He played safety at times at Florida. With Oladejo, he spent so much time as an off-ball linebacker at UCLA that even though there was a little proof of concept at the end there when they moved him off the ball, or they moved him on the ball at UCLA at the end as an outside rusher, there wasn't as much tape. There wasn't as much production if he were to have spent 3 years, 4 years as a pass rusher at UCLA. And I do wonder if maybe he fell in the draft because of that.
Well, I mean, I think he fell in the draft just because the production and I mean, there's a lot of rawness to him. So that's pretty much what it is. I know down in the Senior Bowl, he created a lot of buzz as an outside backer. And I think if anything, the Senior Bowl actually boosted his stock, right? Because I could have seen him getting drafted a bit lower. Because again, like you said, there wasn't really a set position, but it's interesting the way that they're handling him. As far as yesterday I saw him he dropped back in the hook curl zone, and Alec Ironman was able to slip in there and make the catch. But I mean, they have him dropping in coverage. He's doing everything. And I talked to him about that, and he told me that the experience having played off the ball as a middle backer and seeing the full field perspective as opposed to a guy standing up coming off the edge and you're just kind of looking at that part of the field. He said that's helping him be able to play faster. So I think that's a critical thing to look at. Me personally, if I were Denard Wilson, I would just have him hey, go get it. I would use him a lot like the 49ers used Alden Smith back in 2012, right, where Paris Harrelson started. He and Ahmad Brooks, they were the starter in passing downs. Harrelson came out, Alden Smith went in, and he almost broke Javon Curse's sack record for rookies. Now, I'm not comparing Femi Oladejo to either of them. I'm just saying the style of usage, that's how I would do it.
How have the rookie receivers looked? And let's add Gunnar Helm to that group too.
Yeah, Gunnar Helm, I was actually, it's funny you mentioned him. I was talking to him a bit after practice today, and I just told him I recognized the way he's so comfortable finding space in zones and finding those windows. And he said that's a lot of film study and those types of things. He had a couple of nice catches. He did drop one, but he caught another one and he trucked one of the DBs. You know what I mean? So you definitely have that. Io Manor is continuing to come along. Didn't really make a lot of plays the last couple of days. Chimere DK, he struggled to catch the ball a little bit during individual period, but he was able to shake that off. And he didn't really make any plays or anything like that, but he's still someone that you got to watch. In addition to that, Xavier Restrepo. It's funny. I commented to I think it was Ben Arthur. I was talking to him. I was like, "Hey man, you notice Xavier Restrepo kind of disappeared? Like I haven't really seen him." And then he made a catch along the sideline, but a lot of his stuff is the short type of passing game. He had 2 catches, if I can remember, over the last couple of days. So that's kind of your rookie report, so to speak.
Speaking of rookie reports, the development of Cam Ward. Again, it's early. The education of Cam Ward. What have we seen, from mini camp to the beginning of camp, and what's kind of next on the horizon for Cam? We'll get into TD. So we'll do that coming up. And, of course, we'll hit your phones at the end of the hour, as we always do, 615-737-1025. TD with us for the TD Power Hour at Stillman & Company on 102.5 The Game.
Obviously, Back for a couple of days, and I know you've been working out with guys in the offseason. How much did that help make today a bit more seamless?
Real good, just from an understanding of how they're going to run their routes, to them understanding, my ball placement where it needs to be, allow them to make plays up the field. But we got a talented group of receivers, tight ends as well, and running backs who can, make plays in the check down game and in the run game. So, just the pieces that we have, I think we're one of the top, we're capable of being one of the top offenses in the league.
That was Cam Ward yesterday. So, TD, where we sit now, you saw him in mini camp and you saw him in OTAs. Now you've seen the first 2 days of practice. Where are we on the development curve, the early education of Cam Ward? What are you seeing, and where do you see kind of the next steps for growth being?
He continues to be a work in progress. I think that's the best way to put it. And one thing that you have to do is you can't get too high, you can't get too low, right? He threw an interception today. Okay, cool. It was a play where a veteran linebacker knew where the ball was going. He went to it. It happens. And mind you, that throw was to Calvin Ridley as well. So we know that that's going to be a focus. But I think when you look at Cam Ward, the main thing, and this is what he said yesterday when I asked him about that transition to the league, the key for him is going to be timing, right? And so that's why you see so much of an emphasis, right? Get the ball. You get to the top of the drop, get the ball out. But I'll tell you a good example of his development. And I touched on a play earlier, last segment rather. And it was a play where they had a combo where there was a clear out and Io Manor was running a route underneath the clear out. And he didn't get to that window. Like the way his release was, he released a little bit outside and he didn't get tangled up with Jarvis Brownlee Jr., it wasn't Brownlee Jr., with the DB, but he was a little late getting into the window because of how his release was, right? And Cam got to the top of the drop and he looked and the window was there, but the receiver wasn't. So he bounced a couple times, right? And allowed Io Manor to get where he needed to go and then threw the ball. That's a good example of, okay, I understand the timing is important, but I got to make sure my receiver is there where he needs to be when I throw the football. Like I got to make sure that he's going to be able to get there. And another sign of the development that Ward has, because we know so many people, had the issue with he and Shedeur Sanders, right? Patting the ball. Well, in that moment, right, where he bounced a little bit, he didn't pat the ball and he still got it out on time. So there's those things, but then you still have to have like the interception that Cody Barton almost got that he dropped. It was, if I'm not mistaken, it was an outbreaking route by the tight end, and Cam just didn't do a good enough job of looking it off, right? So those are some of the things that he has to do better. He's still adjusting, as he said, to the speed of these defensive backs and defenders, their intelligence, like how well they diagnose things. So it is still a work in progress, but to me, I think it's better. And Cody Barton said it himself. He said, look, man, if you're going to make the mistakes, make them now and learn from it. And I 100% agree with him. And my thing is this, you're not going to know if this guy, because I know you're very paranoid about him getting ruined by being rushed out there. You're not going to know. You're not going to know if he's ready, if you're not giving him the opportunity to show you. So I think all of this is good right now. Me personally, because I know you've mentioned Tom Brady, you've mentioned Patrick Mahomes, look, it's a case-by-case basis. I think that's really the way you got to look at it. You have certain guys in place to develop them that others didn't, and it's just a case-by-case. You got to just see how this works. But I would not – there's a saying, right? Scared money don't make money. And if you go about this scared and you don't believe that your guy has the potential to be the guy and you don't give him a chance to, you're not going to know. So I think they're doing it right.
What have you seen as far as the protections are concerned? I mean, again, I know they can't hit him right now, but I do wonder, about when he stands back there and they're looking at a potential blitz or something like that. Again, it's early, but how has he adapted to pressure so far?
Well, this is the thing, and it's a little bit different from Will Levis in that one thing you see with Cameron Ward, he's not going to flee that pocket early, right? He's going to hang in there and give things a chance to develop. And it's funny because as I said that, it made me think of something he said at the combine, where people said he was taking too long to get rid of the football, but he's like, yo, I'm waiting for my guys to get open. Anybody who has a problem with that, like, they don't really know football. And I laughed when he said it, and I'm like, he has a point, right? If you're able to hang out in the pocket and allow your guys time to get open, I think that's a good thing, and that's what he's gotten. I mean, there has been pressure, but I think you look at it, and the running backs have done a solid job picking up the pressure. Cameron Ward himself, he said it. He said that he has to get better with the slide protection and making sure that the running back is there to in place and to help the running backs out to pick up the blitz. And it actually happened. Roger McCreary came and he was able to get in the backfield, and it was one of the ones where Cam Ward should have seen, he saw it, but he should have made an adjustment. Hey, you know what, get the running back from the left side to the right side where the pressure is coming. That way you can meet it right then and there. So, I mean, those are some of the things with the pressures. But like you said, look, they're going to be on the pads next week. That's when you'll really be able to see how this protection and how everything is developing.
As far as a rookie quarterback being able to diagnose pressure and diagnose what the defense is doing to him pre-snap, how much can a rookie quarterback really be expected to know or to understand?
Well, this, again, is something that's all situational on a case-by-case basis. Let me say this about Cameron Ward, okay? When he was in 5th grade, the Houston Gamblers?
XFL?
Yeah. His dad had him learn that playbook, right? So we're not talking about a guy who's necessarily brand new to all of this stuff. He's been indoctrinated. The life you don't realize, his dad was a quarterback at Houston for a brief time, so it's been something that's an ongoing process. This young man has played 50-plus games in college, right? So it's pretty clear that he has seen a lot. I'm not going to say he's seen it all, but he's seen a lot. So I don't think it's too much to expect him to be able to recognize the things that are going to come his way.
How different is it from high-level college to the NFL for as far as like what these defensive coordinators are trying to do? I mean, these high-level college defensive coordinators are making $2 million to be college defensive coordinators. Mm-hmm. We know, like Nick Saban, for instance, was a great defensive coach, and when teams would play him. So how complex is a college defense to what Cam is going to see in the NFL?
Well, I think a lot more of it is you got the X's and O's and you got the Joes. I think more of it is the Joes, but here's the thing: it's so interrelated, right? Because if you have a safety that is super rangy, like, you could do a few more things where, like, you could disguise, right? You could have him down in the box and rotate that into a cover one into a cover two, right? With him sprinting to the back half of the field and having that cover. So I think it's both things. The defenses are a little more complex because there are better players and you could do more things with them. But at the same time, it really boils down to the players. And that's what Ward said, right? I have to get used to the speed of these defenders. Case in point, I can't put as much on loft on the deep pass as I may have done in college. I got to get used to how these guys read things and react so much quicker. So I think all of that is a thing. And then also the spacing, right? The hash marks are wider in college as opposed to the NFL. And so what ends up happening is, like, you could have the ball spotted on the right hash, and guess what? You've got a whole field side there's a whole wide side of the field that you could take advantage of and spread things out more. It's not like that in the NFL. So there's a collection of things, and it's always a process, right? It's going to take guys a bit to adjust, but I think, the adjustment of Cameron Ward is going to be an interesting study.
I asked Jordan Rodgers one time, we were talking about Josh Heupel's offense at Tennessee, and I was like, could that work in the NFL?
I don't think
And he was like, no. He was like, because the hash marks are too tight, and he's like, all they do at Tennessee is they just spread you out, and then you just say, okay, like, we're going to bomb the ball deep, and we're going to take the best matchup because nobody can play man for man with 5 guys in college football. And he's like, get to the NFL, they can play man for man with 5 guys, and it's not the same. And I think that was a moment where I realized, like, okay, it's just the bigger, stronger, faster really is probably the toughest part for a young player to react to is the game is tighter because of those hash marks, but also because the bodies are bigger, but there's less room to operate with because the guys are more athletic.
Yeah, the guys are much more athletic. So it's a lot harder to be able to do some of the things that you did in college. I mean, think about it, right? There, when he played, I don't know, Louisville, we'll use your school, for example.
Sure.
Right? I mean, obviously Quincy Riley, who, by the way, my guy, he just got his first interception today. Shout out Quincy Riley, picking up Spencer Rattler in New Orleans. But you have Riley, and then on the other side, or like his backup maybe, is a guy who this year is selling insurance, right?
Right.
It's different from college to the NFL. And actually,
Right. Like Louisville's best pass rusher was Austin Gelati, who was a good pass rusher.
He was nice.
He went to the Chiefs, I think, in the third round. But it's not the same as what they're going to see with Denver with Zach Allen and Nick Bonino and those kind of guys.
Right. Exactly. I saw him train. He was down at Exos in Dallas. I got to meet him, man. A pretty cool young fella, man.
He's a good player,
Yeah.
But he's not, again, he's not what you're going to see.
Yeah,
he's not Jared Verse in week 2 with Braden Fisk against the Rams.
Nah.
6-1. By the way, did you see what Teron Armstead said about Jared Verse?
Yeah, he didn't want to see that young fella, man.
He was like, the one thing I'll say about being retired is I don't have to play against that young guy anymore.
I don't blame him.
615-737-1025. We'll hit your phones at the end of the hour with TD, as we always do. What did TD make of the expectations that were laid out by Chad Brinker and Mike Borgonzi? We'll get to that coming up next. Stillman and Company, TD Power Hour, 102.5, 106 through the game.
Last 3 questions right here, guys.
Simple question. The team you put on the field tomorrow, can that team win the Super Bowl?
Listen, that's always the goal every year.
Yeah.
We also realize we have a lot of work to do on this roster.
Okay, there you go, TD. The goal is to win the Super Bowl this year for the Titans.
What do you want the man to say?
I don't think they're probably. I mean, could it have been answered better? I don't know. I haven't really thought about it. I thought that was they got their point across. I think on Tuesday, which was like, hey, this team is a serious work in progress, which we all knew and we all get it, and we all. So, what did you think about them kind of laying out expectations for the fans? And also the message that may send to the locker room when they talk about all the work that needs to be done, the patience that needs to be had. And while it's the goal to win the Super Bowl, there is a lot of work to be done on this roster.
Yeah, I think controlling the message and managing the expectations is really important. And it's something that they didn't do well last year. And it goes beyond the check all the boxes quote that you like to use. I think it just as an organization, like they sold a lot of false hope, and obviously the different moves and things would make you think like, hey, they're going to win some games. No one thought Will Levis would have some of the colossal mistakes that he had. So I think they're doing a good job this year. Like, hey, look, man, like this really is a rebuilding process. But the thing is, knowing that's why I made sure and asked the question. Okay, I understand the patience that you're preaching and that you want everybody to have. But how does that apply to Brian Callahan, right? Because it's very important that they give him a chance to get things right. And I'm not saying that to try to buy him more time or anything like that, because look, man, like if it's just to the point where it's just god awful, then you got to do what you got to do, right? What I'm saying is if there are signs of life and you see some improvement, mainly in your quarterback showing that he's someone that could lead this organization, then you got to give the man time. And it's going to be important not to be reactionary, right? This team, if they win 5 or 6 games, I think that's a progression, and that's something that to not be happy with, but to say, okay, the next step, we need to compete for the division. What moves do we have to do to compete for the division? I think that's the way that they have to look at it. And if they do it that way, as opposed to, oh man, we just got to blow it up, I don't think restarting is a good thing.
What did you think about the way that they really, both Borgonzi and Brinker, supported Callahan? To your point about your question, I mean, they really, really supported Callahan on Tuesday. And some people will say, well, what are they going to say? Because he's their coach for right now. But it really felt like, man, they really are in on Callahan without saying like, yeah, he's for sure our guy of the future as well.
Yeah. So with that, right, here's the thing, man. I think when you look at the way this thing works, Cameron Ward is he's the catalyst for everything. So I think it's almost like the paradigm shifted and that, okay, we got to make sure that we're doing everything that's conducive to Cameron Ward finding success, right? And so I think that's why Callahan may have a little bit more time, so to speak. But at the same time, there has to be a progression. There's expectations that have to be met. So I think that's the way you look at it. I think the support is definitely for Callahan, and it's actually for, just like I said, making things better for their quarterback. But here's the other thing, Jared, right? If you look at this, let's say you fire Callahan. Well, you know what? Guess who's on the grill? Mike Borgonzi is next up on the grill, right? So there's a timeline that is in place, and just kind of an order of waiting to be the guy that's on the hot seat.
Do you think that when they get up there and they have a press conference and they talk about patience and they talk about the work that needs to be done on the roster, do you think that they are saying this to the fans because, hey, fans, we want you to know, we want to shoot you straight, we want to be honest with you? Or do you think that this is almost reinforcing what they're telling Amy privately, that they want to make sure that she knows? So it's like, we're not even selling false hope to the fans that Amy could latch on to as like a, hey, Amy, if we win 4 games this year, like we are expecting to be bad. Like, don't fire us if we win 4 games.
I think they're preaching patience to her. And if anything, like, she's the one that the message has to go to the most, right? Let's say the Patriots come in here and they walk the dog, like they beat the brakes off of the Titans, and Mike Vrabel walks out of here with a victory, and it's gonna be there's gonna be a strong temptation for her to let the coach go, right? So, but she has to use more discernment and patience and not make a rash decision. So I think they are preaching that to her. Just getting her to understand, look, it's a process, and it's going the right direction. And I think in their minds, when that stadium opens in 2027, in February, I think they should be in place to have a competitive team.
Speaking of the Patriots, did you hear what their issue at Patriots practice was yesterday?
No, what was? I heard Vrabel getting on one of the reporters, but
he did get on the reporter. But the issue at practice apparently was pass protection, and Will Campbell got beat for a sack, and Morgan Moses got beat for a couple of sacks, and Vrabel took Morgan Moses out and put in the backup right tackle, and then put Morgan Moses back in. So Vrabel's already got pass protection issues.
Yikes. Well,
I mean, hey, Jason Hodeling will fix it, I promise.
But again, they're not in pads, so make of it what you want. But I wouldn't. I'm just other school. Like, I just stay even keeled, man. Like, I'm not going to get too high on anything, too low on anything. It just kind of is what it is. You look at it and you see how it goes the next day, man.
I disagree. When I heard they had pass protection issues in New England, I was like,
So you think it's a big deal they have pass protection issues when the offensive linemen, the D-line, like, they're not in pads? And what are the pass protection issues?
Big picture? No. But as far as laughing about it, because, the great Mike Vrabel's having pass.
Okay.
I will say this, though. Do you remember Ola Adeni when the Titans were trying out Dylan Radins and Kittle Lamb at right tackle without the pads on? And Ola Adeni was just smoking them.
Actually, we watched the practice together, and I turned to you. I said, do you see the way Dylan Radins is getting smoked? Remember, we were at the practice.
So that's the one thing I do say about the offensive lineman without pads on, because every time, the offensive line looks bad without pads, the coach immediately always says, well, they hadn't even put the pads on yet. And they only wear the pads like 10 days out of the entire training camp anyways.
Right.
But
the days that count, the things that count, the games, they got the pads on.
Oh, they got the pads then. But again, like when you see Ola Adeni, who is like an okay player, like when you see him just smoking somebody off the edge, like that's when it's like, it don't matter if you're wearing pads or not. Like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, when it's just completely lopsided. Yeah, I mean, for sure. But is that the case every time? Right. And you're pointing out one time a rookie got beat, Will Campbell. It happens, man. Like, it happened.
Well, he's got the short arms, which, by the way, I'm surprised Vrabel's letting him play left tackle, because they wouldn't let Peter Skoronski play left tackle.
Again, and this is what you got to stop doing. You don't just, it's a case by case thing, right? Just every guy with short arms is not going to be evaluated the same. You know what I mean?
Do you think Skoronski could have played tackle?
He probably could have. Now, how well, I don't know, because remember, one of the things that was a bit of an issue with Skoronski early was the footwork, right?
Yeah.
Will Campbell is a bit of a better athlete than Skoronski is different prospects, although they have one trait that's the same.
Skoronski has the biggest feet I have ever seen in my entire life. It's like Shaquille O'Neal's feet. I don't know.
Those feet worked towards the end of the season. He developed into a pretty solid offensive lineman.
Have you ever been to the NBA store in New York?
Yes.
So I remember when I was a kid, I went into the NBA store and they have this like this footprint, and it's like, this is so-and-so's, like, this is Michael Jordan's foot, this is Kobe Bryant's foot, and then it's like, this is Tim Duncan's foot, this is Shaquille O'Neal's foot. That. And you like put your foot in it and you see how small your foot is compared to Shaq's. That is Peter Skoronski's foot. He's got Shaquille O'Neal like size feet. All right, TD takes your phones next. 615-737-1025. That's next. 615-737-1025. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106 of the game. TD with us for the TD Power Hour. Hey, this September, Tim McGraw will be performing at Trinex's Rock the Cradle in Nashville, a meaningful event supporting newborns and moms at Ascension St. Thomas Midtown. Get your tickets now at rockthecradlenashville.org. TD, do you have a thought or do you want to go right to the phones?
I do have a thought, man. Brian Callahan hat on backwards. It really bothered you that much?
Yes, turn that cap around.
Ooh, wasn't it Colin Cowherd had the issue with one of the quarterbacks doing that, right?
I think it was Carson Wentz.
Yeah. I know that's your guy, so yeah, I get the correlation.
So it's funny because I actually asked ChatGPT, I said, why does it bother me that in a video the Titans put out head coach Brian Callahan has his cap on backwards? Why am I perturbed that the coach would have his hat on backwards? And ChatGPT said it bothers you because it feels like it violates what you subconsciously expect from a head coach, where leadership, image, and authority are part of the job, not the same vibe as a guy tossing a Frisbee at the tailgate. I said, yes,
Lord,
that is it. By the way, what'd you think of the speech Callahan gave?
I mean, I'm not a big rah-rah speech guy. You know what I mean? You're talking to someone who pregame listened to Aaliyah, 1 in a Million, Brian McKnight, Crazy Love, Tony, just me and you. Like, I'm not a big rah-rah guy, so you're asking the wrong person.
I believe in this team. That said, phone line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Adam in Portland is up next. Adam, you're on with TD. Thank you for calling. You go ahead.
TD, I'm glad you got to check him out, man. I got a 7-year-old, and he'll get to see his first Titans game this year. I've taken him to a lot of Preds games. But week 2 against the Rams is the first Titans game, and I'm curious how I could get him into it. Because when I was introduced to the Titans, we had Steve and Eddie. Like, you could pick so many dudes to get you fired up. Steve, Eddie, even Bruce, Javon, Lane Bishop, Samari. There's nobody on this team that gives me those feelings. And I'm trying to find somebody to be like, hey, here's our guy. Maybe Cam, but I'm wanting to see if you see anybody that's like, a 7-year-old would love this guy. Like, I need to I got one shot, man. I got an opportunity to get him into football. And so I wanted to see your thoughts on it, who I could.
I tell you, Adam, one guy that I would point to, obviously, is Cam, but one guy that I would point to two, and I'm just going to point to one. Calvin Ridley is the one that I would point to. And if I were you, I would tell him, I would say, son, this is an example of how you make sure that everything you do is with the utmost effort and like it's the last time you're ever going to get to do it. That's every rep that Calvin Ridley has. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. Look, man, like I've seen Steve Smith, Anquan Bolden, Alshon Jeffrey. I've seen, there's a pretty good list of receivers that I've seen. I've never
AJ Brown.
Yeah, right. How could I forget one of my favorites? I've never seen a guy practice with the same level of urgency that Calvin Ridley practices with, and that he plays with.
The Titans put out last year where Chris Harris went up to Calvin Ridley at practice and said, "In my entire career of coaching, I've never seen a guy that works as hard as you do."
Yeah. And I mean, like,
so,
everything is full, like everything.
I will say this, though, in regards to that question. I mean, you're talking about comparing a team that went to the Super Bowl in their first year to a team that won 3 games last year. Like, the team that goes to the Super Bowl is going to have better players on it. Like,
yeah, but I mean, look, like, I get that, but this is the situation that Adam's in. Like, he wants his son to buy in, and he's like, hey, man, like, who could I get him to hook into? And, like, for me, to this day, I'm a Mets fan, right? 83, Darryl Strawberry, I saw him on the cover of the Daily News MLB preview, and it was a cartoon. I'm like, oh, this dude, a cartoon, and he got a cool name, and then watched him, and he was good, and boom. So there is, one player could really hook you in and get you locked in as a fan for life.
Andy says, TD, it's looking like Treylon Burks may be the odd man out, but with his size, would it not be smart to give him a chance at tight end? And that way they could use him before they lose him.
No, and it's, I get the comment, but there's a different level of physicality that's required to play tight end. I mean, you're banging with the linebackers, the ends. Like, no, I wouldn't do that. I think Burks may end up making the roster. Bryce Oliver, to me, is going to be on there, but I wouldn't be surprised if Burks makes it.
I think it's more likely than not that Burks makes the team.
Yeah.
Because That's $2.6 million guaranteed, and the Titans don't like flushing away that kind of money.
And I mean, he's a good deep threat. I mean, look, he's had a couple nice deep catches. I mean, look at the one against the Chargers. He had a couple years ago. You got the one in the Packers game in Green Bay. You got the Bengals one. Like, he's had some pretty significant catches.
I heard Brian Callahan answer today about Traylon Burks, which was basically like, I like everything Traylon does. I like what he's about, but at the end of the day, he's got to produce, which kind of sounded like, he's got the right attitude and he's what we want. Like, he does what we want him to do. We just need him to stay healthy and catch the ball when it's thrown his way.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I asked him straight up. I say, look, man, like Mike Berganzi said that you reported to shape really well and he commended you. We've heard that 3 years in a row, Traylon. Like, what's going to make this year different? And he did hint on being healthy, but he also said, and to his point, right, when you end up having to experience the lows, like it helps reveal some things. And sometimes, it prepares you for that climb to the peak. And I think that's what he's looking at now. But, man, like, that climb is going to be a really big one. And I mean, I'm sorry, I don't expect too much out of I'm just going to keep it 100. I don't really expect too much out of him. But if they're able to get it, then that's great for them.
I had an executive in the NFL tell me that when Burks was coming out of Arkansas, that they scouted him and that they felt like the way his body, just like the way he's like biomechanically engineered, that his body is prone, especially in the knees, to injury.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. He's a very violent runner. So, I mean, yeah, that is definitely a good point. And that's something I remember Alshon Jeffrey. That's something that he had issues with, but then he got with a guy out of Washington, and he learned how to, like, he redid his body composition, but then he also learned how to run, like, not as violently. And believe it or not, the only injury he had that year was when he dove and landed on the shoulder.
One texter says, TD, did something change with the Titans' perspective of Callahan? Because at the beginning of the year, it felt like he was on the hot seat with management saying they were going to hold him accountable. And now it feels like it's different.
Well, I don't think it's any different. They're still going to hold him accountable. I just think that there's more reason in it and patience. And I mean, don't get it twisted. Like, if stuff is just completely wrong, he's going to have to go. But if there's signs, so to me, it's kind of like one of those, like, you ever have like a really pretty girlfriend and
yes,
you want her to like, hey, I just need you to just boom, boom, boom. And she doesn't, you're like, okay, cool, I could keep her. But if she doesn't, you're like, yeah, I know she's bad, but my piece is important. I got to cut ties. You know what I mean? And I think that's kind of the situation that they're in.
It's like you're rooting for him, but you're also open to the fact that if you're rooting and it doesn't go the way it's supposed to go, then
it is what it is. Yeah, yeah.
Randy says, TD, knowing last year, I'd say the majority of the fan base and some portion of the media were shocked that Jeffrey Simmons was not sent to the locker room after throwing a punch in practice. Has Brian Callahan been asked or mentioned anything about how he's going to handle fighting during practice this year? And do you think he may change from last year?
That is a good question. And I will tell you this. I told Callahan, I said, like, that was a missed opportunity, right? And I think for me, like, you're a new sheriff in town. You want to show right away, like, hey, yo, look, man, like, I'm fair, but I'm firm. And I'm not going for that nonsense. I don't care who you are. And I think that was the opportunity to do it. And he didn't. And, you can't go and put the toothpaste back in the tube. I would imagine look, that's a good question for Saturday. You know what I mean? And he's actually speaking before the practice. That is a very good question. Hey, Brian, how do you plan that to manage things? Actually, you know what? There was a scuffle today. Mason Kinsey and Marcus Harris, they were kind of rolling around on the ground a little bit, and then they got up and parted. But I'm curious, and that's a question to ask me. How would you handle fights if they break out?
What's up with the press conferences before practice, by the way?
I just go I go when they say it's time to go, man. I don't know. I would rather have them after, because, that's one of the things. They want you to make sure that you're checking with them before you like, look at Jarvis Brownlee. He got hurt yesterday, right? And, what I mean? He just was overheating, but it looked like it might have been something, you know what I mean? But then you don't get to speak to the coach afterwards. So you can't get the explanation. So it can make things a little bit more difficult.
I don't think there's any point to the coach speaking before practice. That's just me. You know, I remember when we were in Minnesota, Vrabel spoke before practice, and then Traylon Burks got hurt. And it's like, what's the point of the coach speaking before practice?
Yeah.
I know that, like, if you're working on a story, it gives you an opportunity to ask a question that's going to the story that would have nothing to do with what happened at practice or not. But, you know, again, this is practice, and most people, you know, are watching practice. They want to know, like, hey, you know, like, I remember when they scrimmaged the Buccaneers one time, and Logan Woodside threw like 5 interceptions in a row. And I asked Vrabel, I was like, what happened? And Vrabel was like, well, it was the last play of the game. So Logan had to throw the ball no matter what. Like, he can't take a sack. He can't throw it away. He can't. So I'm like, oh, okay, got it. So, like, yeah, Logan Woodside's trying to fit it in there. He can't throw the ball away. He's got it. So he threw 5 picks in a row. Makes sense. But if you don't speak after practice, then you can't answer that question.
Right. And this goes back to what I said about staying even keel, because I don't think you could get too high or too low on any play, because you don't know what's going on in that period. And actually, J.J. Watt had a tweet today about keeping stats. And you know me, I don't keep stats at practice, right? Because like his tweet said, you don't know if he's saying, if like Callahan's saying, like, Cam, I know we tell you to read this, this, and this, but we want you to go here with the football, right? Or if you're saying, hey, look, you know, Brandon Allen, I know that you're not supposed to throw the ball here on this, but the way I want the defense to see this, make sure you throw it here. You never know the situation, and that's why you never get too high or too low on stats, especially, but overall results of practice.
Well, I would also say, though, it would help as far as context is concerned if they would have the coach talk after practice.
Yeah, I mean, look, it could help. It could help, but it also would help if we as professionals understand things that we should understand about practice.
Also, what did he say to you when you told him he missed the opportunity not throwing Simmons out of practice?
It wasn't really much that could be said. He just kind of like nodded his head, and you know, that's it.
TD, great stuff as always. And by the way, instead of TD on Saturday, he will be TV because he will be all over ESPN.
Yeah. Hey, listen, it's going to snow in July, right? TD, Teron Davenport, NFL Live. What? But it's going down, man. Let's do it. I'll be on SC too, the 10 a.m. edition.
10 a.m. Sports Center, NFL Live on Saturday. Again, that's all on Saturday. Tune in for TD. TD, great stuff. We'll talk soon.
Appreciate it. Get better soon, man.
Thank you, sir. TD joining us on the program for the TD Power Hour. Speaking of what TD just said, the 2 TV hits he's going to do, I am actually shocked because I have felt when it comes to Cam Ward that the perception has been a little different. We'll get to that coming up next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. So I have to say, I was shocked when TD told me that, hey, ESPN wants him on TV on SportsCenter. They want him on NFL Live, and that ESPN is really in right now on Cam Ward. And I was shocked when TD said that, because one thing that I found crazy when I was kind of monitoring the way Cam Ward's been covered here locally and the way Cam Ward had, in my opinion, not been covered, had not been talked a lot about nationally, was I was like, man, the dichotomy of the two. He's treated like an absolute rock star in the city of Nashville when it comes to the questions that are asked, and everybody, this show, it's like, talk Cam. I mean, the questions at the press conference for Cam Ward, I'm surprised somebody hasn't asked, Cam, have people thrown panties in your direction because you were the number one pick? And then outside of Titan circles, it's kind of like the only time they ever talk about Cam Ward on NFL Network is when one of those bozos on that morning show is going off about, they don't talk enough about Cam Ward. I mean, think about this. Cam Ward was the first overall pick in the draft. And on his draft night, while he was being picked on ESPN, the big discussion was about the fact that the other guy wasn't being picked. Like on ESPN, when Cam Ward was getting the call, Mel Kiper Jr. was talking about how, well, I mean, I like Shedeur Sanders, and I think they should draft Shedeur Sanders over Cam Ward, and And then the whole night, the entire ESPN draft, they said nothing about Cam Ward. He was picked as he's walking up to the podium. Adam Schefter says, we got to trade for number 2. And that was the end of Cam Ward. No talk about Cam Ward. The end. And then Cam Ward comes out with a docuseries. His people start kind of trying to sell it out there. Not Netflix, not Amazon, not Apple, not NBC, not ABC, not CBS, not ESPN, not ESPN Plus. Tubi ends up acquiring the rights to the Cam Ward docuseries. Again, I don't know how much money Tubi offered. I don't know if that's more money than, like, say, a Netflix usually pays for something like that. But I'm going to guess the answer is probably no. Probably Netflix spends more money on these things than Tubi. Hulu has the Alex Cooper kind of documentary, Call Her Alex, the Call Her Daddy podcaster. I actually watched it. It wasn't bad. I'm not going to listen to the Call Her Daddy podcast, but I did enjoy the documentary on it. And I'm like, they must have paid Alex Cooper, who's making a gazillion dollars from SiriusXM. They must have paid Alex Cooper a gazillion dollars, a fortune, to have a docuseries on her on Hulu. Cam Ward, again, he's on Tubi. And the more I've thought about this, the more I think this is actually a good thing. And so when I hear TD saying, hey, ESPN wants Cam content, I'm like, I don't know if I like that. And I'm going to tell you why. Because when you are drafted into a big market, or you are a big-time personality, Trevor Lawrence got drafted to Jacksonville. Zach Wilson was taken with the 2nd overall pick, and he went to the Jets. And Trevor Lawrence has been allowed to flounder in mediocrity or really, really crappy situations in Jacksonville. And nobody really gets worked up one way or another. And he's able to develop, and he's able to. And Zach Wilson, it was like year 2. He's a bust. He sucks. The Jets suck. Fire him. Fire everybody. And I actually think you're better off, if you're actually going to develop into a good player, I think you're better off doing things under the radar. Look at Oklahoma City in basketball. They've been building that team for 4 or 5 years with SGA, and they've stunk, and so they've acquired all these good draft picks, and they turned it into this awesome NBA team that just won the championship with the league MVP. again, I'm not here to tell you that this SGA is Michael Jordan, but his season, as far as winning MVP and the scoring title and finals MVP, and there was another thing he won, I can't remember, All-Star Game MVP, like that is Michael Jordan-esque. But would that have been allowed to happen if it had been the Knicks? Or would after 1 year they'd have said, he sucks, he's terrible, he's awful. And I think this does matter. Last year, Caleb Williams, talking about how little attention Cam Ward gets. The Titans do not have a single primetime game. Not one. And the guy that makes the NFL schedule had the audacity to say, you don't draft your way to prime time, and at the same time saying, well, they've got a preseason game on national TV. The audacity. Caleb Williams played on Sunday Night Football last year in week 2. The number 1 overall pick usually does play in prime time because the number 1 overall pick usually is a TV draw. And while I don't like hearing Jeffrey Simmons publicly complain about Cam Ward's not getting the respect he deserves as the number 1 overall pick, and I know it's a hot button issue with Titan fans when it comes to Cam Ward and it comes to we're not getting enough respect and we're not getting enough attention and we're not getting enough publicity, I'll say this. I actually think that's a good thing. I think it is a good thing to fly completely under the radar. Again, every now and then, there's a young guy who gets all the attention, and he's good right away, and he's Jaden Daniels. Week 3, week 4 last year, Monday Night Football, Jaden Daniels put up 38 points on the Bengals in a shootout against Joe Burrow, and it was like, boom, Jaden Daniels has arrived. But for the most part, I think it's better when you're working out the kinks, when you're developing, to kind of be doing those things and keeping your own business and minding yourself. But I do think it's crazy that I listen to these Cam Ward press conferences and I listen to the questions for Cam, and it's like, Cam. And that's locally. And again, Titan fans do care about the daily updates with Cam Ward. I'm sure Titan fans don't like the fact that he threw the interception to Cody Barton. For whatever the reason is that he threw they don't like it. I wouldn't like it. I don't like it. I'm a Titan fan. But it's almost like outside of Nashville, not one person cares about Cam Ward. I remember during the draft process, I would do some segments on SiriusXM about Cam Ward. And I talk about, do the Giants need to be interested in Cam Ward and I get no phone calls. I do a segment on Shedeur Sanders, talk a little Shedeur, and it was lighting up. But again, actually, it might be a good thing. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number. Speaking of quarterback attention, there is a story that came out that I'm like, is this really that big of a deal? Like, really that big of a deal? We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game. Here to tell you about Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I love Hiller. They take great care of my home. They can do the exact same for you. Have you ever called a plumber, an electrician, an HVAC tech, and felt like they were trying to sell you something that you absolutely, positively did not need? Well, if a deal sounds too good to be true, like a $99 club membership or a $29 tune-up, that's because it is. The reality is they have to find something to fix so they can cover their costs for the quote-unquote discounted club memberships. Unlike the other guys, Hiller never offers deals designed to trick you or sell you something that you don't need. And you hear me talking about my friends at Hiller all the time. But this right here, this is why I trust Hiller in my home. I love them. So schedule online today. Be like me. Schedule online today at happyhiller.com. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller. Call the Hatfish Truck today.
Good morning. We have breaking news out of Jets camp. According to our Rich Cimini, Justin Fields was injured on the first play of the second team period at Jets practice today. Aaron Glenn immediately stopped the period and moved on to the special teams drills as Justin Fields was carted to the locker room with what appears to be a lower leg injury. We do not know the severity of it at this moment. Kimberly Martin, we join you here at the First Take table. What more can you tell us?
Listen, this is one of those, if you are a Jets fan, you are in disbelief because this is a franchise year after year, you're hoping that for good news, you're hoping for a quarterback. Them getting Justin Fields after the Aaron Rodgers debacle, they thought this is new life, new hope, and to have Justin Fields essentially day one of training camp.
Yep.
And you're just floored. Justin Fields entered a situation where he felt like he wasn't given the best opportunity in Pittsburgh to showcase what he could be. He had that here with the Jets. We hope that this isn't as severe as it sounds. We'll get more information as this show keeps going. But it's just devastating for the kid, for this franchise. But if there's any one person who I trust in this situation, it's Aaron Glenn, where you know he's going to deal with a lot of things with this franchise, and he'll be able to get them under control.
Okay, that was this morning on ESPN with the news about Justin Fields. And now I think it's come out that Justin Fields has a dislocated toe. And let me say this, a couple of years ago, I was on the boat, and I remember I climbed into the boat, and I got on the boat, and I felt something in my foot, and I looked down, and I'm like, I think I broke my toe. And I think it might broken, dislocated. I don't know. It was one of those things. It hurt for a while. But I looked down. I'm like, I think I broke my toe. And somebody asked me, they said, which one? And one of the other friends goes, probably the one that's pointed sideways. And it was like, oh boy, it hurt. And for like a couple of weeks, it was bad. So I have no idea what happened to Justin Fields. I guess I'm going to equate it to that. He'll be fine. That said, this morning, Caroline and I were on from 6 to 9 Eastern time on SiriusXM, which meant I was off at 8 a.m. And this happened at some time like 8:30, 8:45 that the news broke that Justin Fields had been carted off. And I mean, the outrage, constant Twitter, Mike Greenberg on ESPN, Justin Fields gets hurt. It's like, oh God, Justin Fields is hurt. Oh God, the Jets. Oh Lord, what are they going to do? Oh my God. Oh, it's this. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, Justin Fields kind of sucks, guys. Like, Justin Fields is not a big deal. Like Kimberly Martin right there in that cut, she's acting like, oh, the Jets, oh, it's just so awful that this happened to them. I can't believe it. Justin Fields was a backup quarterback last year. Justin Fields was acquired by the Steelers for a 6th round pick. Again, am I the only one who's missing this? But this, again, goes back to kind of the lack of attention that Cam Ward gets, which is Cam Ward doesn't play for the Jets. If you play for the Jets, or you play for the Giants, or you play for the Cowboys, or you play for people, pay attention. And if you don't, you better be Mahomes or Josh Allen, or nobody's paying attention. I mean, just the amount of chatter today on Justin Fields. And then it came out this afternoon, Fields' injury is not considered significant. In spite of the relatively positive update, missed time should still be in store per whomever. Justin Fields isn't even that good. Justin Fields over 17. Justin Fields is 14-30 as a starter. Over 17 games, he averages in his career 2,600 yards, 15 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. If Cam Ward throws for 2,600 yards this year, 15 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions, Brian Callahan is getting fired. I mean, but again, it's like, can you believe it? This guy started only because the guy plays in New York. It's like the guy sucked, but people talked themselves out that he sucked because he played for Chicago. Then he gets traded from Chicago for, again, a bag of footballs, a 6th-round pick. He goes to Pittsburgh. He backs up the corpse of what once was Russell Wilson. The Steelers don't even bring him back because even though reportedly the Steelers wanted to bring him back, he was too much money, so he goes to the Jets. And now they're treating it like, oh, my God, the Jets just lost their franchise quarterback. This guy's a Scarbini bum. And he got hurt. And here's Kimberly Martin on TV being like, well, thank God they have Aaron Glenn because he can get them. He can handle the situation because, my God, nothing good ever happens. This guy sucks. He sucks. And they're going to make a big deal about this? I mean, give me a freaking break. Justin Fields sucks. And they're going to make a big deal about it. I saw somebody put this on Twitter, and I'm not saying I completely agree with this, but I don't disagree with it either, which is the Jets are better off with Kirk Cousins at quarterback than they are Justin Fields. That with Garrett Wilson at wide receiver, you're better off with Kirk Cousins than you are with Justin Fields. I mean, my God, ESPN. Breaking news, Mike Greenberg's reaction. I'm speechless. I can't handle it. I can't take it. I can't. It'll be okay, Greeny. It'll be okay. Aaron Rodgers acquired, tears his Achilles 4 plays into the season. You go back to Zach Wilson at quarterback. That I understand. That is something at that point in time with that context of where you were. That is a legitimate thing to be upset about, to be worried about, to be in disbelief about. Justin Fields, a backup quarterback last year, who was traded. Anybody could have had him 2 years ago for a bag of footballs. And we're really going to go that crazy about it? Give me a break. 615-737-1025. 615-737-1025. One texter says, Justin Fields started 6 games last year and won 4 of them. That's one more than the Titans did all of last year. He's not that bad. Yeah, put Justin Fields on the Titans last year and see how many games he wins. Because, again, Justin Fields in his career is 14-30. He was 2-8 his first year with the Bears. He was 3-12 his second year. So when he was on a bad team, he didn't make them much better now, did he? And he got them the number 1 pick, and they traded that to Carolina, and a year later, they got the number 1 pick, and he got dumped. Fields. Evan says, so does Justin Fields suck or does he suck? Well, I mean, again, he averages 2,600 passing yards a year in a league where if you don't throw for 3,000, you ain't very good. He's 14-30 as a starter. He averages 15 touchdown passes. Joe Burrow threw 50 last year. Give me a break. One text says, I feel like Bryce Young didn't get much primetime respect either, but I might be wrong. It might also because the team they're on is just not entertaining enough as well. Texture says, I think Cam Ward was not sought out as a true first overall pick. He kind of happened just to be the first overall pick, whereas Caleb Williams was sought out for 3 years by everybody and won a Heisman Trophy. I think that is a fair point. Matthew from Jolton says, I'd rather have Justin Fields than Sam Darnold. Again, Justin Fields has played in the NFL for 4 seasons. He has won 14 games. Sam Darnold won 14 games last year. And the organization that ruins quarterbacks, Geno Smith, Sam Darnold, Zach Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, is now trying to rehab Justin Fields. Good luck, Fields. He sucks. 615-737-1025. There is something that a lot of people out there, I'm not going to say you people because it's not you people, but there is something that a lot of people are completely ignorant about. And I think you know me, I'm not an ist person. I usually don't claim things are racist. But I think some of you are kind of showing some sexism here We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 The Game.
Our WNBA reporter Kendra Andrews was in the building. And Kendra, we see the players wearing those "Pay Us What You Owe Us" shirts during warm-ups. We hear the chants from the crowd. Can you just shed some light on how it was the players came to this unified decision that they wanted to wear these T-shirts and make that statement?
Yeah, Malika, these shirts had been in the works for about a week leading up to Saturday night's game. It was really spearheaded by the leaders, the player leaders of the PA. As you heard Kelsey Plum say, they wanted to make a collected, united statement, and they felt they don't have to use words to do that. We know that in 2020, they wore shirts that supported the Black Lives Matter movement. They've also worn shirts that supported Brittany Griner when she was being detained overseas. So they knew that shirts would be a powerful and useful way to get their messaging across. Now, there was a players only meeting on Saturday morning, very early around 8 a.m. So a couple people didn't quite make it down. We all know how big of a party All-Star Weekend was, but the meeting was just to get on the same page, to make sure everyone felt comfortable wearing those shirts and that everyone was ready to go out and make this statement, take the message, the conversations that they've been having behind closed doors for the last couple months and bring them to the national forefront. As you said, Malika, this was such a huge All-Star Weekend. So many eyes were on this weekend. They knew that they could really get their point across here.
Okay, over the weekend, the WNBA players wore shirts that said, "Pay us what you owe us." And I didn't have a problem with it. I know that the WNBA players are going to opt out of their collective bargaining agreement at the end of the year, and there's going to be a protracted labor fight, and the WNBA is thriving right now. And so the WNBA is going to have to give them a bigger piece of the pie. And so they're just positioning themselves for their labor fight the same way Rob Manfred in baseball is positioning himself with his labor fight, and how the NFLPA with their labor fight, that they have the guy going to the strip club. So it's all kind of the same, right? But the thing that's crazy to me is after they wore those shirts, "Pay us what you owe us," I was on Twitter, and even now, and I see the angst that some people have that may not even be fans of the WNBA or whatever, and they are just being downright cruel. But not only are they being cruel, they're also wrong. There's an idea out there that the WNBA loses money. They shouldn't be wearing shirts, "Pay us what you owe us." They owe us. They owe the owners. They owe the NBA because the WNBA loses money. And we need to go over this for a second. Number one, it is not the player's job to pay back what previous players did not make that league. It is not the job in the collective bargaining agreement in the NFL for Aaron Rodgers to pay back what the owner of the Chicago Cardinals lost in the 1940s. That's not how it works. Secondly, there's a lot of people saying that the WNBA lost $40 million last year, and that's true. And the WNBA has lost money. That since 1997, the WNBA has reportedly lost approximately $300 or $400 million based upon league projections. 300, 400 million. That's a lot of money. I agree. But guess what? By adding 3 new franchises last month, the WNBA got $250 million in franchise fees per team. That's $750 million to be split up by the owners right then and there. You think people are paying $250 million if this league wasn't thriving? Bill Haslam wanted to buy a team with Peyton Manning and Candace Parker. He was willing to pay $250 million. Do you think Bill Haslam is stupid? Do you think Bill Haslam is going to make that kind of investment foolishly? Of course not. So the WNBA, for all the money they've lost, they just got it all back. Also, let's use that $40 million number again. The WNBA's TV contract is around $20 million a year. Next year, as part of their new TV contract, which is about equal to that of the MLS's TV contract, with their new TV contract, the WNBA will make $160 million a year. They are going to be positive by $120 million. So if you're $40 million in the hole, you just made that up with the new TV contract overnight. And here's the real problem with this. The WNBA players make 9% of the revenue. So there's a revenue split. In hockey, for instance, let's say you pay to go to the game and your ticket is $100. So you just paid the Nashville Predators $100. Well, you just paid the players on the ice $50 because the NHL revenues are a 50-50 split. The team gets half, the players get half. That's the salary cap goes up if they make more money. The salary cap goes down and the players' money goes into escrow and they lose the money if the league loses money. The NHL is 50-50. The NBA is 50-50. The NFL is 48% to the players. Major League Baseball, while it's not defined similarly to the other sports, is a 47% share. And the MLS is 33%. The WNBA is 9%. So just based off the basic economics that I have told you about, you mean to tell me that the WNBA players don't deserve more? Do you know what Caitlin Clark's contract is? Caitlin Clark represents about an economic impact of $1 billion to the WNBA. Her contract is a 4-year contract worth $338,000. Again, her impact is $1 billion. I did the comparison today. There was a study done in 1998 that Michael Jordan, this was a Fortune study, and Fortune believes that Michael Jordan was worth $3.5 billion. Excuse me, 3.1 billion, no, 3.6 billion dollars. A Fortune-based study in 1998 credited Michael Jordan with generating $3.6 billion in revenue for the NBA. So Caitlin Clark is valued at $1 billion. Jordan, $3.6 billion. Jordan made $94 million in his career. So the league made way more money off of Michael Jordan than Michael Jordan made directly from the league. Now, Michael Jordan made a bunch of money from his shoe contracts, and Michael Jordan made a bunch of money from his other endorsements. But again, the money that the league gave Michael Jordan when Michael Jordan was giving the league $3.6 billion was $94 million. If Caitlin Clark has added $1 billion to the WNBA and is paid $338,000, then that means that by comparison, Michael Jordan will earn 77 times more per dollar than Caitlin Clark does. And you think that's right? You think it's right that the WNBA players get 9% of the pie with league revenues exploding? They are averaging 11,000 fans a game. And you think that's right? And I know most people don't, but I mean, the amount of people that sit there and say things like, the WNBA, nobody watches the WNBA. The WNBA All-Star Game without Caitlin Clark in it drew 2.5 million viewers. That's good. Like, that is a good TV rating. WNBA games on national TV when Caitlin Clark plays draw 2 million viewers. That's a good TV rating. The NBA games don't draw 2 million viewers. For a national primetime NBA game, and the league, you know, ESPN and NBC and Amazon are paying like $11 billion a year for that. And they don't draw 2 million viewers. So this idea, I mean, some people are like, they think they deserve to be paid as much as the men. They don't. They didn't say that. They think they deserve more than 9%. And I think anybody who has a brain who isn't a sexist a-hole probably believes that too. If you think they should just be happy that they have a sport, then you're kind of sexist. Because again, the MLS makes a bigger percentage. Hockey, basketball, football, baseball all make a ridiculously higher percentage, and they make 9%. Give me a break. And yet there are people out there that are like, oh no, they don't deserve anything. Based off of what? One texter says, this might be the dumbest take that you've had yet. I just gave you the math. They get 9%. People will say, well, they don't make a profit. Last year, they lost $40 million. Right, and their new TV contract is about to make them, if you were to take that $40 million, in the black by $120 million. I saw a story today at Yahoo Sports. Economists say that WNBA players are paid historically low. But yeah, okay, fine. They're women. They should be paid less. You can go ahead and say it because that's what you're saying when you're knocking WNBA players for wearing T-shirts, which is just your basic collective bargaining agreement, public outreach. One texter says, Caitlin Clark gets ridiculous amounts of money from advertising. Right. But that doesn't mean that she shouldn't get more from playing in the WNBA. They sell, every building she plays in sells out. So, again, I don't know how much, for instance, the Predators make per hockey game, but I'm going to guess it's pretty good. I'm going to guess it's more than the $70,000 a year that she makes. Every night there's a game. The Indiana Fever, who drew more than the Pacers, who went to the finals last year, the Indiana Fever every single night make her salary and then some. Probably a lot more than her salary. Every single game. You don't think that she's entitled to more of that? One texter says, no revenue equals no money. So again, their TV contract kicks in next year. It is the same as the MLS's TV contract. Do you think the MLS doesn't have any revenue? If they were in the red $40 million and their new TV contract kicks in, they're now in the black by 120. But before you even get to that, remember, the franchise fees are $250 million a piece, and they just added 3 new teams. That's $750 million. That's making a profit. But I guess that doesn't count. I guess it doesn't count that now they have a massive TV contract. And I guess it doesn't count that they've brought in $250 million for people that are just desperate to get teams. Your city is desperate to get a team. And yet, everyone's like, nope. They suck. Okay. 615-737-1025, Stillman and Company. Let's give something away. Be caller 5 right now at 615-737-1025. You want a pair of tickets to see Live with Collective Soul at First Bank Amphitheater on Sunday, August 10th. Good luck there. Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game. Stillman and Company, hey, tune in to the latest player interviews and the latest updates on Titans training camp as the team preps for the 2025-2026 season. Coverage of Titans training camp is presented by Messero and 12 South and by Parman Energy Group. So I do owe an apology. My numbers when I was talking about the WNBA off a little bit. I said the TV contract was $160 million. I apologize. It's $200 million a year. So the WNBA, the reason I said 160 is because the profit. Again, people say, well, they lost $40 million last year. Right. And if they lose $40 million again with the new TV contract that kicks in next year at $200 million apiece, they will then make a profit of $160 million. And that is before the franchise fees. And I keep reading your text messages where one texter says, maybe go into the black for a couple of years. They have yet to do that. You're just being a contrarian as you typically do. This is a terrible take. Again, go into the black for a year. What do you mean? They've made $750 million this season before you even factor in TV money, ticket money, that kind of stuff. Franchise fees, that matters. Does it not? The league owners will be very happy. But I'm going to guess you're just going to ignore that because you want to say things like the WNBA is a charity case. And it's just not that anymore. One texter says, I think there are like 5 players in that league that are worth more than they're getting paid. Well, again, that's how it kind of works. Connor McDavid is worth a lot more than he's getting paid. But when there's a cap, that's how they kind of say, well, you know, if we want other players, we're going to have to pay you less, which happens across the board. I mean, all these players that are really high, big time. You think Mahomes is worth $45 million a year? Or do you think Mahomes is closer to like $150 million a year? That's how it's going to be for Caitlin Clark and the other players that are of that stratosphere, of that ilk, of that. But you can't say the WNBA is a bad product because the WNBA is selling tickets. You can't say it's a bad product because they get TV ratings. You may not watch it, but again, I don't watch NASCAR. I don't. But I understand. Have you seen NASCAR's TV ratings? It's a real business now. I don't watch wrestling. I don't. I think it's fake. I think it's for booger eaters, to be completely honest with you. And yet I know that a bunch of people watch wrestling, and wrestling is a real business. The WNBA is a real business. A real business. They get real TV ratings. They draw 11,000 fans a game. Caitlin Clark sells out everywhere. Their TV contract is worth $200 million a year. Their franchise fees are worth $750 million. You can complain about it all you want. I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't change the math of the money that's being made. So you can complain about, they shouldn't make any more money. But again, the math doesn't work out for you. All right, that's it for us. We're out of here. Stillman and Company. We'll see everybody tomorrow at 2.